Chapter 902. As soon as Qiu Wuyuan left the courtyard, the sound of sweeping stopped. Shouchen walked towards the door with the broom in his hand. Yan Wuchen, who was standing on the stairs, narrowed his eyes and shouted, "Stop! What do you want?" The handsome Shouchen slowly turned around and looked at Yan Wuchen. He said respectfully, "I just want to go out for a walk. You are not allowed to leave this courtyard without my permission." Yan Wuchen said sternly. Shouchen was startled, but he nodded and said, "Yes." He walked to the big tree beside the door and leaned the broom against the tree. Then he walked towards the main hall without a word. He walked up the stairs and bowed to Yan Wuchen when he passed him. Then he walked into the house. When he reappeared, he was already walking out from the back door of the main hall. He slowly walked into a cave in the mountain wall of the backyard. After passing through a dark cave passage, the front suddenly opened up. There was a spacious space in the belly of the mountain. There were tables, chairs, and beds. This cave was Yan Wuchen's cultivation place, and it was also the forbidden area of the 10,000 demons. Even the current palace lord of the 10,000 demons, Bu Yunxiao, did not dare to trespass. However, the strange thing was that Yan Bugui, who had disappeared from the cultivation world for a long time, was brazenly sitting at a table and drinking wine. Shouchen frowned slightly. He strode over and snatched the wine jug from the already drunk Yan Bugui's hand. Yan Bugui tilted his head to look at Shouchen and laughed miserably. "Now that we are hiding in this dark place, we don't even dare to take a step out of the cave. We don't even know when this kind of life will end. Can't I even have a drink?" At this moment, the stone niche on the main seat slowly moved away. Man Hu and his martial brothers, who had disappeared from the cultivation world for a long time, walked out. Behind them was third brother Xian. The 7 of them were covered in dust. Shouchen glanced at them and placed the wine jug in front of Yan Bugui. Yan Bugui hugged the wine jug and gulped it down. "The secret room is almost finished. We just need to do some simple decorations, and it can be used," Man Hu reported. The appearance of these people, coupled with their respectful attitude towards Shouchen, immediately made Shouchen's identity seem even more mysterious. In fact, Shouchen was none other than Yan Juexing, who was almost killed by Yu Qianqiu in Lingfang Valley. Because his primordial spirit was not destroyed, he took over Shouchen's body and was reborn. In fact, Yan Juexing himself had no idea what was going on. Back in Spirit Fang Valley, he thought he was dead. Who knew that when he woke up, he would find that he had returned to the side of his grandfather, the 10,000 demons. After waking up, Yan Juexing realized that his demonic arts had been destroyed, and he had changed beyond recognition. Fortunately, he was still alive with another identity. The strangest thing was that Yan Juexing realized that Shouchen's body had already been forged into a demonic body. It was as though his body was naturally prepared for him. Yan Juexing could not understand such a strange phenomenon. In the end, he could only attribute it to the magic of demonic arts. However, Shouchen was originally someone who served Yan Wuchen. After being reborn, after being taken over by Yan Juexing, his words and actions were naturally very different from the original Shouchen. It was impossible to hide from Yan Wuchen's eyes. After a slight contact, Yan Wuchen immediately noticed something suspicious. Yan Juexing did not hide anything. He still needed Yan Wuchen's help if he wanted to recover, so he told Yan Wuchen the truth in full detail. Yan Wuchen was shocked when he learned about this. He did not expect such an unbelievable thing to happen. Although Yan Juexing had become a rat that everyone wanted to kill in the cultivation world, Yan Juexing was his grandson after all. He could not bring himself to kill him, so he could only take him in quietly. However, what happened next was that his son, Yan Bugui Man Hu, and the others had somehow gotten the news that Yan Juexing was here and had come back. This made Yan Wuchen very uneasy. The cultivation world was now the world of Yu Qianqiu, and Yan Juexing was the person Yu Qianqiu had ordered the world to kill. If the news of him taking in Yan Juexing and the others was spread, it would undoubtedly bring disaster to the 10,000 demons. However, the 10,000 demons did not belong to his 10,000 demons. Yan Bugui and Yan Juexing were his son and grandson. It was easy to say that he would put family before family, but it was very difficult to do it. Although he was in a dilemma, Yan Wuchen knew that cultivators always spoke with their strength. The reason why Yu Qianqiu could command the world was that he was now the #1 expert in the world. Yan Wuchen subconsciously felt proud that his own grandson was able to make Yu Qianqiu feel a deep sense of fear. As for whether or not his grandson cultivated some evil demonic art, it didn't matter to Yan Wuchen, because he thought of himself as a demonic cultivator. Therefore, Yan Wuchen hoped that Yan Juexing would have the strength to challenge Yu Qianqiu. It would be best if he could kill Yu Qianqiu, and then Yan Juexing himself would ascend to the throne of the world's #1 expert. At that time, no one in the world would dare to criticize the Yan family. Instead, they would spare no effort to criticize Yu Qianqiu. However, he was also worried that Yan Juexing would fail again, because he could not afford to fail. At that time, the whole 10,000 demons would be implicated. Therefore, while he was trying his best to help Yan Juexing in his cultivation, he kept restricting Yan Juexing. Before he had the strength to fight against Yu Qianqiu, he was not allowed to leave this place at will, devouring a nascent soul and using a virgin body to cultivate. After Yan Wuchen saw the bloody scenes of Yan Juexing's cultivation, he felt terrified. Only then did he realize that the demonic cultivation method his grandson cultivated was very different from the demonic cultivation method he knew. It was extremely evil. Seeing that Qiu Wuyuan's arrival had attracted Yan Juexing's interest, Yan Wuchen was shocked. He mistakenly thought that Yan Juexing wanted to attack his disciple. However, he did not know that Yan Juexing was not interested in Qiu Wuyuan, but the things in Qiu Wuyuan's hands. Secret room. Haha. Yan Juexing suddenly shook his head and laughed. I really did not expect that there would be a magical weapon from the demonic world, hidden in the 10,000 demons. I have been thinking for a long time, and wanted to forge a magical weapon that I could use. I did not expect it to be right in front of my eyes. I actually saw it today. The few of them looked at each other. Man who asked suspiciously, "There is a magical weapon from the demonic world hidden in the 10,000 demons? How is that possible?" Yen Bugui, who had been drinking wine by himself, stopped and started to ponder. I also thought that it was impossible, but I saw it with my own eyes just now. It can't be wrong. Yan Juexing said in high spirits. Before the demonic god ascended to the divine world, he left behind a magical weapon for his descendants. It is called the demon blade. There is a picture of the demon blade in the demonic book. It is shaped like a crescent moon. It is exactly the same as the one I saw just now. It is a waste for such a magical weapon to fall into the hands of Qiu Wuyuan. What a pity. Shaped like a crescent moon. Ah. Yen Bugui suddenly stood up and exclaimed, "Are you talking about the Black Moon Pagoda?" Yan Juexing looked at him and nodded with a smile. That's right. It is the Black Moon Pagoda. In the past, I heard that my grandpa had a famous treasure in his hands, which helped him run unhindered in the Chinese cultivation world. Unfortunately, I've never seen it. I didn't expect it to be a magic weapon left by the devil god, the devil blade. To others, the demon blade is just a sharp magical weapon. But to me, it can only be used with the corresponding demonic technique to truly display the monstrous power of the demon blade. If we knew that the Black Moon Pagoda was the demon blade, we would not have ended up like this. The outcome of the battle at Lingfang Valley is still uncertain. Man who was pleasantly surprised. Since the demon blade is so powerful, why not ask the old palace master to bestow the Black Moon Pagoda to junior brother, so that you can take revenge for master? No rush. A demonic red light flashed in Yan Juexing's eyes. He snorted. Because of our impulsiveness, we have already suffered too many losses. We cannot do things that we are not confident in anymore. Besides, my cultivation and my damaged primordial spirit have yet to recover, so we can't act rashly in case someone discovers us. Let's leave the Black Moon Pagoda in Qiu Wuyuan's hands for the time being. When I recover, it will be a piece of cake to take it back. Even if I get it now, I cannot cultivate that profound demonic technique in my current condition. Speaking of the damage to the primordial spirit, Yan Juexing still had lingering fears. After the 7 demonic spirit serpents, that were refined from the 7 strands of his primordial spirit, were destroyed by Yu Qianqiu, It was equivalent to his primordial spirit being heavily injured. Logically speaking, he should have died on the spot. And at the very least, he should have become an idiot. However, he was able to reincarnate and maintain his consciousness, which was a miracle. Hearing what he said, Man Hu and the others felt that it was a pity. However, they also knew that no matter how eager they were for revenge, they could not be too hasty. Otherwise, the losses would outweigh the gains. Yen Bugui, who was holding the wine pot, suddenly stared at Yin Juexing and sighed. Indeed, you cannot be impulsive anymore. This Yu Qianqiu caused you to become like this. You must not let him go. Sigh. If your mother sees your current appearance, she will definitely hate me to death. Haha. It's not a bad thing to become like this. At least I can deceive people now. Yen Juexing stood up and touched his face. He said disapprovingly, As long as my primordial spirit is still my primordial spirit. When my primordial spirit recovers, and my cultivation reaches a certain level, it will be a piece of cake to restore my original appearance. As soon as he said that, the few of them looked at each other in confusion. Yen Juexing immediately laughed and explained, In the demonic book, there is a great technique of reincarnation. As long as the primordial spirit is not destroyed, one can occupy another's body and be reborn. Although I have not cultivated it yet, I believe that my rebirth this time has something to do with this great technique in the demonic book. After the reincarnation, as long as your cultivation reaches a certain level, you can perform the last step. It is called birth of the devil's heart. It is similar to what we commonly call appearance from the heart. It is a kind of feedback from the inside to the outside. Whatever your primordial spirit is, your physical body will be the same. At that time, I, Yin Juexing, will still be me. Who can tell that I have reincarnated? Haha, haha. Savage laughter reverberated in the belly of the mountain. Chapter 903. In a small conference room on the 21st floor of the World Commerce Association, Yu Qianqiu and Nongzhu sat facing each other for a long time, separated by a round table. There was no other reason for them to sit here, but because Nongzhu couldn't stand it anymore. Not only did he listen to Yu Qianqiu's orders all day, but most importantly, Yu Qianqiu always made him do odd jobs, and make him do anything that was embarrassing. Putting aside the matter of distributing flyers, when the World Chamber of Commerce had just been established, now they had given him a task to welcome guests at the main entrance. As long as a female customer came, he, Nongzhu, had to rely on his good looks to persuade the female customer to buy something. Nongzhu was quite unhappy with this arrangement. However, Yu Qianqiu had made the arrangement in front of the lords of the various kingdoms. Nongzhu couldn't refuse in public, and had to give Yu Qianqiu some face. Even if he wanted to refuse, he had to look at the green-winged bat King Wei Chuanxiu, who had been eyeing him covetously. Nongzhu could only comfort himself that this skinny bat spirit was just jealous of his good looks. But then again, being handsome did have its advantages. Many female customers became regular customers because of Nongzhu's face. However, the reason why Nongzhu decided to give up was that there were two female guests he was familiar with who came to visit him at the same time. Both of them wanted him to accompany them. However, Nongzhu couldn't separate himself, so he could only accompany one at a time. Because of this, he angered the other female customer who was ignored. That female customer flew into a rage on the spot, and took out a large pile of spirit stones to ask Nongzhu to accompany her. As long as Nongzhu accompanied her, she would give him this pile of spirit stones. Hearing this, all the lords looked at Nongzhu with suppressed laughter. Nongzhu was angry. He almost slapped that female customer. I'm not selling my body, but in terms of fighting, that female customer's cultivation was much higher than his. She was an immortal expert, and he probably couldn't take advantage of her. Moreover, the World Commerce Association's rules forbade rudeness to customers. This was the main reason why Nongzhu came to complain. Sai, I told you to stay in the Southern Sea's violet bamboo forest to protect Furong, Ze, and the others and not come to the immortal dimension to join in the fun. But you just didn't listen. Yu Qianqiu sighed with emotion, and he had an expression as if he should have known this would happen. Bang! Nongzhu slammed the table angrily and suddenly stood up, pointing and scolding. Don't cry crocodile tears here. Don't think that I don't know that you are deliberately playing tricks on me and forcing me to go back. You heartless bastard. No matter what, I'm a good friend of your master. Now that your master is gone, you're turning your back on me. It's so disappointing. Yu Qianqiu wasn't angry at all. He leaned back on the chair and shrugged. I really didn't force you. Everyone came to the immortal world to conquer the world, so we naturally have to play to our strengths. Think about it. Although you, Mr. Nongzhu, are a first-class expert in the mortal world, you're not even close to being an expert in the immortal world. Tell me, other than a good face, what other strengths do you have? Since you have such a strong point, I naturally have to let you play to your strengths. If I let others do this, the female customers won't give me face. You've already made those female customers fork out at least a few 100 million divine grade spirit stones. To be honest, I'm not willing to let you go even if you want to. How about this? Why don't you stay and try again? Maybe you'll get used to it after a long time. Shut up. Nongzhu gritted her teeth and said, Don't give me that, you win. I don't want to play anymore. I want to go back. You really want to go back? Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. He stood up and walked to Nongzhu's side, asking solemnly, Think about it carefully. I don't want to force you. Do you want to go back or stay? I can't keep you company. I want to go back. This shout almost caused Yu Qianqiu's face to be covered in spittle. Yu Qianqiu didn't say anything else, and immediately brought him to another room. There was a teleportation array that he had pretended to set up. A burst of smoke gradually dissipated, revealing the underground palace that the meditation cultivator had dug out. Nongzhu snorted coldly, flicked his sleeves and left. Yu Qianqiu shouted from behind, Send my regards to Furong and Zi. Nongzhu ignored him, leaving Yu Qianqiu shaking his head with a bitter smile. The reason why he deliberately forced Nongzhu to leave was because he was worried about Furong and the others' safety. He still had no idea what was going on with that unkillable Yan Zhuixing. There were almost no top experts in the mortal world. If Yan Zhuixing appeared again, ordinary spirit-severing realm experts would not be his opponent. Leaving a late-stage spirit-severing realm expert, and one who had a close relationship with Nongzhu, would put him at ease. Even if Nongzhu could not deal with Yan Zhuixing, at least she could buy some time for him to come. After sending Nongzhu away, not long after Yu Qianqiu returned to the World Chamber of Commerce, someone came to report that Shui Mingqing of Chaotian Palace had come and was in the living room. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows. He knew that Chaotian Palace wanted to check the situation because they did not see Immortal Palace deal with him after waiting for a few days. It would not be long before people from other sects also came. He sneered and said, If people from other sects come to find me, just say that I am not here. The lord in charge of running errands immediately took the order and left. As soon as Yu Qianqiu arrived at the living room on the 6th floor, Shui Mingqing strode over, cupped his hands and apologized. Brother Yu, I'm really sorry, I can't come out. He immediately told the reason, and it was similar to what Wan Ling had told him. Seeing that he told the truth without hiding anything, Yu Qianqiu finally felt a little estrangement in his heart. He waved his hand and invited him to sit down. The two looked at each other, and Yu Qianqiu asked, What did your master ask you to come this time? Did he respond to the purchase of elixirs from World Chamber of Commerce? Shui Mingqing hesitated for a while, and finally told the truth. Actually, this time, my master mainly asked me to ask you whether people from Immortal Palace came to find you. As for the purchase of elixirs, my master said that your World Chamber of Commerce has caused too much trouble. Not to mention Immortal Palace, even Heartless Palace will not let you go. There is no way to cooperate with you at all. In the short term, Chaotian Palace will not consider cooperating with you. He said that if you ask about this, don't say anything definite. Just say that you are still waiting for the sect's reply, and he can't make the decision. Damn it! When Yu Qianqiu heard this, he kicked over the rattan chair on the side and sneered in his heart. He now saw clearly that in the case of unequal strength, he was not even qualified to cooperate with others on an equal footing. He was completely snubbed by others, and they did not treat him seriously. It seemed that he had no choice but to play hard. Seeing that he was angry, Shui Mingqing immediately comforted him, Actually, you don't have to be angry. My master did this because he doesn't want to take responsibility. If you really want to purchase elixirs, there is a way. What way? Yu Qianqiu asked casually with a lack of interest. Wu Xiong, the commander of Immortal Palace's foreign affairs, will be getting married soon. At that time, even if the sect leaders do not come in person to congratulate him, they will send people whose status in the sect is second only to the sect leader to attend. Chaotian Palace naturally cannot avoid it. You and Mu Tianjiao are friends. Why don't you take the opportunity to go to congratulate her, and contact the people in Chaotian Palace, who can speak to you directly, so that you don't have to push the blame to my master here. Shui Mingqing came up with such an idea. I will go to Mu Tianjiao's wedding. Yu Qianqiu pondered, and suddenly set up a soundproof enchantment. He dragged the rattan chair to sit closer and asked, Can you find a way to help me get the elixir recipe of your Chaotian Palace? This, Shui Mingqing was shocked, but he knew that he was tied to Yu Qianqiu's boat. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. It's not difficult to get some ordinary elixir recipes that the disciples in the sect use to practice. But that kind of elixir recipe doesn't seem to be a secret in the immortal world. You can also ask about it elsewhere. I think the elixir recipe you want is not such an ordinary elixir recipe. Yu Qianqiu chuckled, sat up straight and said, To tell you the truth, we are brothers, so I have nothing to hide from you. I originally wanted to purchase elixirs from your Chaotian Palace through normal channels, but your Chaotian Palace simply disdains to earn our little money. Since that's the case, there is nothing more to say. I am a straightforward person, and I don't have so many twists and turns in my mind. I don't care what kind of elixir recipe it is, I want all of them. You can think of a way to help me borrow a copy of these elixir recipes. He still had some self-cultivation, although to put it bluntly, he still used the word borrow in a roundabout way, so that it wouldn't sound too bad to say steal. Ah! Shui Mingqing was so shocked that he jumped up and waved his hand repeatedly. This is impossible. I haven't even broken through to the immortal realm, and I don't even have the qualification to enter the scripture-seeking pavilion. How can I steal all the elixir recipes? What's more, the real top elixir recipes are carried by my sect leader. I can't even get close to him, so how can I steal things from him? Oh, no hurry, don't worry. I'm not even in a hurry, so why are you in a hurry? Sit down and talk slowly. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand to comfort him. He knew that he was a little too hasty, but there was no other way. He still had a large group of brothers waiting behind him. How can I not be anxious? Brother Yu, this is too dangerous. Don't scare me. I really can't do anything, Shui Mingqing said with a bitter smile. There is always a way to solve things. Aren't we discussing it? Yu Qianqiu coughed and said with a smile. Is your scripture-seeking pavilion the place where elixir recipes are kept? Not only elixir recipes, but also the various cultivation techniques of my Chaotian Palace. Seeing that he still didn't give up, Shui Mingqing put on an attitude of explaining the pros and cons, and said in detail, Elixir recipes and cultivation techniques are divided into levels. Only when you have reached the corresponding cultivation level will you be qualified to enter the corresponding level to read. As for the scripture-seeking pavilion, outsiders can't barge into it at all. Not only are there many experts guarding it from the outside, but there are also experts on every level. Most importantly, every Jade archive has a restriction placed on it. It can't be duplicated, and it can't be taken out of the scripture-seeking pavilion. Otherwise, the contents of the Jade archive will immediately self-destruct, and you won't be able to get anything out of it. Furthermore, the guards will be alerted the moment the Jade archive self-destructs. Think about it, under such strict protection, who can steal it? Chapter 904. Hearing this, Yu Qianqiu's first reaction was that it was a bit like supporting Immortal Island back then. But presumably, the Sutra depository of supporting Immortal Island would be more tightly guarded. However, Yu Qianqiu didn't think much of it. With his own means, he could get the Sutra depository of supporting Immortal Island back then. Now Chaotian Palace might not be an iron bucket. As the saying goes, there's always a loophole in 100 secrets. He could study it carefully. After some thought, Yu Qianqiu asked slowly, You just said that the top pill recipes of Chaotian Palace are with your sect leader. What kind of pill recipes are they? You still don't give up? Shui Mingqing paused and said, That's right, the sect leader carries them with him. It's said that those pill recipes refine golden pills that seize the fortune of heaven and earth and have extraordinary effects. However, it's useless even if you have the pill recipes, because the immortal herbs used to refine golden pills are hard to come by. It's rare to gather all the immortal herbs on the pill recipe and start refining. Brother, you don't think about these golden pill recipes anymore. Our sect leader's cultivation is profound. It's impossible to get the pill recipes from him. Yu Qianqiu nodded slightly and didn't say anything. He knew this. Most of the top sect leaders in the celestial world had reached the intermediate stage of celestial emperor. Even if they hadn't reached it yet, they weren't far from it. It was difficult to get close to them, let alone steal their things. Unless you had the ability to kill them, or they were willing to hand it over, it would be possible. However, these two situations were unlikely to happen. While the two of them were talking, Du Feng and Hui Yunlong had already come to visit Yu Qianqiu on the first floor of the World Chamber of Commerce. However, the two of them were speechless when they were told that Yu Qianqiu wasn't at the World Chamber of Commerce. They didn't know where he had gone, and the date of his return was uncertain. Helpless, the two could only go back. What conditions do you have to meet to enter the Sutra Depository? Yu Qianqiu asked with concern. Shui Mingqing's scalp went numb from his questions, and with a bitter expression he said, I really can't go in unless my cultivation breaks through the soul formation stage and reaches the immortal realm. But even then, the pill recipes I can come into contact with are only ordinary pill recipes. Yu Qianqiu replied with an, oh, and asked again, is the geography of the sutra-seeking pavilion very complicated? I don't know, I haven't seen it with my own eyes. Shui Mingqing asked weakly, Brother, you won't really let me go in and steal it, right? Even if you beat me to death, I won't be able to get in. Hehe, if you can't get it then forget it. How can I force you? By the way, when are you going back to Chaotian Palace? Yu Qianqiu asked with a smile. Hearing this, Shui Mingqing immediately heaved a sigh of relief and said with a smile, I guess I'll have to wait a few more days. If the Immortal Palace really doesn't pursue this matter, I'm going back. I see. Yu Qianqiu nodded in understanding. Then he reached into his signature storage bag and searched for a while. He grimaced in pain and frowned. He took out a golden Buddha the size of a palm and handed it to Shui Mingqing. This is for you. Shui Mingqing hugged the golden Buddha and rubbed it for a while. He found that it was just an ordinary golden sculpture. Except for the strange shape, there was nothing special about it. He asked suspiciously, Bald? What kind of shape is this? Why did brother you give me this? Yu Qianqiu laughed and said, After you bring this back, put it in your living room. It can help you turn bad luck into good luck and ward off evil spirits. Just take it as a gift from me. Shui Mingqing was stunned. He couldn't help but hold the golden Buddha and carefully search it again. In the end, he still couldn't find anything special about it. He asked doubtfully, Does this thing really have such a magical effect? Hey, I'd rather believe it than not. Just take it as an auspicious effect. Yu Qianqiu said perfunctorily. All right, then I thank brother Yu for his kindness. I can't stay any longer. Master is still waiting for my reply. Shui Mingqing stood up and said goodbye. Yu Qianqiu didn't ask him to stay. He sent him to the stairs. Looking at Shui Mingqing who was going downstairs, he didn't forget to wave his hand and said, Brother Shui, don't forget to put that thing in your living room. You must remember, it can ward off evil spirits and ward off disasters. Shui Mingqing raised his head and looked at him affectionately. He was so touched that he couldn't speak. He just pursed his lips and cupped his hands at Yu Qianqiu, then resolutely went downstairs. After watching Shui Mingqing disappear downstairs, Yu Qianqiu pulled out his right hand from behind his back. A trace of pain flashed across his face. There was a small cut on the tip of his index finger, and there was still a trace of blood that hadn't dried yet. Then he sucked on it and muttered as he walked back, What an idiot! Wouldn't it be over if he just wrapped a small silver ball in it? He wasn't scolding anyone but himself. This was because the golden Buddha statue he gave to Shui Mingqing contained a drop of his blood essence. After Shui Mingqing left the World Commerce Association, he didn't return to the Skyward Palace branch. Instead, he went directly to the Wan Gutong branch. In the side hall, someone let him in. Not only was his Master Yi there, but Du Kairan, Huo Lianqing, and the others were also present. Du Feng and Hui Yunlong, who were previously rejected at the World Commerce Association, were also present. Wan Ling was a girl, so she was quiet at this moment. She stood alone at the side. She didn't stand with the old or the young. She just quietly listened to their discussion. Wan Gai glanced at her from time to time. He didn't participate in the conversation with Du Kairan and the others. When they saw Shui Mingqing come in, they all looked over. Master Ye impatiently asked, "Mingqing, did you see Yu Qianqiu?" Shui Mingqing was stunned. He didn't know why his master would ask this. Wasn't he going to see Yu Qianqiu? Of course he saw him. He didn't know that not long after he was sent by Master Ye, Du Kairan and Huo Lianqing also sent their sons to find out what was going on. Who knew that they would be rejected by Yu Qianqiu? Shui Mingqing bowed and said, "I saw him. The two of us just chatted for a while." After hearing this, Master Yi looked at the others with a proud expression. His disciple was indeed well connected. He was better than most people when it came to interpersonal relationships. At the very least, he was better than Du Kairan and Huo Lianqing's sons. Their sons were also friends with Yu Qianqiu, but they didn't even see him. Du Kairan and Huo Lianqing looked at each other and couldn't help but let out a cold snort. Du Kairan sneered and said, "It seems that Yu Qianqiu was rejected by us last time, so he immediately returned the favor. He's quite bold. He really thinks he's someone." Shui Mingqing was puzzled, but he couldn't say anything. Du Feng's expression was a bit awkward. Yu Qianqiu made him lose face, which made his father angry. Huo Yunlong felt the same. The two cousins looked at each other and didn't say anything. On the contrary, Wang Gui laughed and said, "He's quite bold, otherwise he wouldn't have provoked the Heartless Palace." There was a hint of mockery in his words, as if he wasn't afraid of the Heartless Palace, so why would he be afraid of the Spirit Cultivation Sect? Master Ye also laughed and waved his hand. Then he asked Shui Mingqing, "What did Yu Qianqiu say? Did the people from the Immortal Palace not cause trouble for him?" Shui Mingqing replied, "This disciple asked him about this matter, and he said that there was nothing going on. This disciple was thinking too much and worried about nothing." Master Ye frowned and said, "This is strange. Normally, it is impossible for the Immortal Palace to not do anything about this matter. It seems that this Yu Qianqiu is quite capable. He can even resolve this matter. No matter how capable he is, he can't do anything to the Immortal Palace." Du Kairan snorted and said, "A bright moon shines in the sky, accompanied by green and jade wings. Brother Ye, don't forget that the Great Bright Will has a close relationship with Wei Chuanqiu and Yin Peng. If I'm not wrong, the reason why Yu Qianqiu could safely pass this time is probably because the Great Bright Will helped him out of respect for Wei Chuanqiu and Yin Peng. Otherwise, I'm afraid the Immortal Palace wouldn't even need to respond. The Great Bright Will would deal with it first." Master Ye nodded slightly. Then he shook his head and said, "The Immortal Emperor is very afraid of the Myriad Swords Demon Monarch. So how can the Great Bright Will help in this matter? I reckon that without the Immortal Emperor's approval, the Great Bright Will wouldn't dare to make a decision." The moment these words came out, everyone was even more confused, but they couldn't figure out the reason, no matter how they thought about it. Only Wan Ling, who was at the side, had a faint smile on her face. She thought that she was the one who knew the reason the best, and she was even more certain that Yu Qianqiu was the Immortal Emperor's trusted spy. And when Wan Gui, who was paying attention to her from time to time, saw that smile, his heart couldn't help but tremble slightly. He remembered that when Yu Qianqiu looked for him to be a referral, it ended up alarming Wan Buosheng. He still remembered Wan Buosheng's words clearly. Wan Buosheng once said, "Try not to provoke him in the future. This person has a very deep background." In addition, Wan Buosheng and Wan Ling didn't take this matter seriously. It seemed that they had long guessed that nothing would happen to Yu Qianqiu, and sure enough, nothing happened to Yu Qianqiu. Thinking of this, a thought flashed through Wang Gei's mind. There was no need to say anything. This Yu Qianqiu's background was the Immortal Palace. Other than this explanation, there was no other reason. After a moment of silence, Wang Gei laughed and said, "Since you can't figure it out, then don't think about it. Anyway, it's a good thing that everyone is fine. Why don't we talk about something else? In a few days, it will be the wedding of the Immortal Palace's External Affairs Commander Wu Xiong. I think it will be an unprecedented grand occasion. I wonder who your sex will send to congratulate him." The few of them looked at each other speechlessly. How could they be in the mood to talk about this with him? Since the matter with Yu Qianqiu was over, they should immediately report it to the sex so that they wouldn't worry. Du Kairan took the lead and said, "I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first." With him taking the lead, Huo Lianqing and Master Ye also took their leave. In the blink of an eye, only Wan Gai and Wan Ling were left in the room. At this time, Yu Qianqiu of the World Chamber of Commerce had just received 2 golden wedding invitations. They were signed by Wu Xiong and Mu Tianjiao, inviting him to attend their wedding ceremony at the Paradise Wonderland. In layman's terms, it was to go to the wedding banquet. But there was also a wedding invitation for Lu Yanqing, which surprised Yu Qianqiu. He didn't expect that 2 women would have feelings for each other after fooling around in a room for a night. Chapter 905. In the living room on the 6th floor, Yu Qianqiu stood quietly in front of the transparent crystal window and looked out. When he heard something behind him, he looked back and saw that it was Lu Yanqing. He immediately smiled and said, "Lu, Beauty Lu is here." When he called her face to face, he found that he didn't know what to call her. It was obviously inappropriate to call her Senior Lu, and it felt a little weird to call her by her name directly, although he was qualified to do so now. Therefore, he continued to use his comical style, praising him in passing. Hearing this title, Lu Yanqing's unhurried steps paused slightly. She looked at Yu Qianqiu with a complicated expression. Back then, the little cultivator who did not dare to overstep in front of her had now made all the experts in the world unable to catch up. She couldn't help but marvel at Bai Changchun's unique vision. He chose such an unscrupulous disciple, but he could take all the masters in the world under his command. There was a little taste of the student surpassing the master. The torture envoy of the demon region continued the legend of invincibility in the world. She just paused for a moment, then walked up to him and asked with a trace of doubt, "What can I do for you?" Yu Qianqiu's hand behind his back shone. He took out one of the 2 golden invitations and handed it to her, saying, "This is the wedding invitation from Mu Tianjiao." Looking at the pair of slender white fingers that took the invitation, he couldn't help but sigh slightly in his heart. She deserved to be the most beautiful woman in the world. After Lu Yanqing opened it and read it quietly, she looked a little stunned. Obviously, she didn't expect that she would send an invitation to herself after just one night with Mu Tianjiao. She looked up at the other invitation in Yu Qianqiu's hand and asked lightly, "Can I go?" Yu Qianqiu waved the invitation in his hand and said with a smile, "This is an invitation from Wu Xiong Lianming, the commander of foreign affairs in the Immortal Palace. Do I dare to stop you? Go with me tomorrow." Lu Yanqing gently bit her lips and nodded. Then she looked at Yu Qianqiu and asked, "I haven't seen Nongzhu for a long time. Has he returned to the human world?" He was the one who wanted to go back. He couldn't let go of Zi, Yu Qianqiu said casually. He naturally wouldn't say that he was the one who forced him to go back. "If there's nothing else, I'll go back," Lu Yanqing said with a bitter smile. "Wait," Yu Qianqiu called out to her. Lu Yanqing stopped and looked at him. He scratched his head in distress and said, "We can't go empty-handed to drink other people's wedding wine." He had to bring some congratulatory gifts. But now his identity is different. If the gift is too small, he won't be able to accept it. If the gift is too big, he doesn't care about that. But no matter what, he has to express his sincerity. "You are also a woman. What gift do you think is good? I'll make it clear first. It's best if you can choose a gift that suits her heart. After all, her identity is different now. Maybe in the future, we will need her help." This. Lu Yanqing was stunned. She didn't seem to be used to his straightforward profiteering. After pondering for a while, She frowned and said, I didn't expect her to really invite me. She said it that night, and I thought she said it casually. I remember she said that she hoped I could play a song you made as a gift for her. Do you agree? The corner of Yu Qianqiu's mouth twitched. He said awkwardly, do as you wish. Then what should I give her? Lu Yanqing's eyes lit up. She bit her lips and said, I think she likes the song you made. Why don't you make another one and give it to her as a gift? I think she will be very happy. Ugh. Yu Qianqiu waved his hands in fear and said, forget it, it's too disgusting. No matter what, I am still the dignified sect leader of the world commerce. If I do such a thing in front of everyone's eyes, I will be suspected of flattery. In the future, I will be criticized by others. Since you are also a member of the world commerce, I'll just find a gift to make do with it. That's it. Hearing him say this, Lu Yanqing was a little disappointed. She could no longer hear his new song, but she knew that she did not have the qualifications to control him. She nodded and said, if there's nothing else, I'll go back first. Seeing that Yu Qianqiu did not say anything, she quietly turned around and left. After she left, Yu Qianqiu immediately frowned and walked upstairs with a heavy heart. The reason why he was so worried was because he knew that he had offended a few people in the ruins of God, especially the Heartless Palace. As long as he left the illusory immortal city, the Heartless Palace would most likely take the opportunity to kill him, so he had to find a helper. Currently, the only people in the world commerce that could help him were Wei Chuanqiu and Yunpeng. If he pulled these two experts over, as long as nothing unexpected happened, it should not be a problem. Right now, he was most worried about Bai Suzhen's safety here. However, after thinking about it, he felt that there wouldn't be any problems. Who in the immortal world would dare to make a move in the illusory immortal city? If it really didn't work out, he would temporarily send Bai Suzhen back to Utopia. Yu Qianqiu arrived at the door of his room, on the 22nd floor. Just as he was about to observe the movements inside through the crack in the door coincidentally opened. Wei Chuanqiu was startled, and immediately shouted with a frown. What are you peeking at again? Yu Qianqiu glanced inside, and saw that Bai Suzhen was floating in the air with her eyes closed. A white pearl was suspended above her head, emitting a faint light. Strands of white light seeped out from the pearl and circled around Bai Suzhen's body, causing Bai Suzhen, who was sitting cross-legged, to be enveloped in a misty white light. Her dignified and peaceful scene was like Guanyin Bodhisattva descending to the mortal world. The scene was extremely magical. However, before he could take a few more glances, the door was immediately closed by Wei Chuanqiu. I didn't peek. I came to look for you. Yu Qianqiu's gaze was cut off by the crack in the door as he smiled awkwardly. Looking for me? Wei Chuanqiu casually set up a soundproof barrier and said snappily, What's the matter? Yu Qianqiu chuckled, and immediately told him about the invitation he received. In the end, he said weakly, Considering that this trip is a little risky, I would like to invite you and Yunpeng to come with me. Aren't you very capable? Are you afraid of death? Wei Chuanqiu sneered resolutely. I'm not going. Yu Qianqiu became anxious on the spot. Bat Kingwei, you can't go back on your words. You promised to serve me for 100 years. Wei Chuanqiu expressionlessly raised his chin and said, It's not that I'm not keeping my words, but Bai Suzhen's cultivation has reached a critical moment. She's just at the beginning of her cultivation. She can't be disturbed in any way. I have to stay here to watch over her and protect her. Do you think I can leave? Yu Qianqiu was immediately dumbfounded. This reason was enough to shut his mouth. For the sake of Bai Suzhen's safety, what else could he say? He smacked his lips and turned around helplessly. Looks like I can only ask Senior Yunpeng to accompany me. There's no need to look for him. I've instructed him to watch over upstairs and not allow anyone to approach this floor from the outside. I'll guard inside and he'll guard outside. Wei Chuanqiu said word by word. I have to ensure my daughter's absolute safety. No one is allowed to endanger her safety, not even you. Then what about my safety? Once I leave the hallucinatory immortal city, I'll most likely be targeted by the Heartless Palace. Yu Qianqiu anxiously said, Think about it. If something happens to me, your daughter will definitely be sad. Can you bear to see your daughter become a widow? Wei Chuanqiu's old face instantly twitched. In the end, he gritted his teeth and took out a jade talisman. He injected something into it and crushed it. A weak glow quickly dissipated in the air. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. He knew of this thing. It was the communication method of immortal experts. The higher the cultivation, the further the communication distance. After a while, there was a weak fluctuation in the air. Wei Chuanqiu put on a listening expression, and then looked at Yu Qianqiu. Yinpeng and I can't go, but the Great Bright Wheel and Wu Xiong are friends. He will go. I've already told him that he'll come here tomorrow and bring you along. With him bringing you, I think the Heartless Palace won't dare to touch you. Aha! All right. I won't disturb you then. After solving the problem, Yu Qianqiu laughed and left. It was naturally safer to follow the Great Bright Wheel. On the 11th floor, Lu Yanqing paced back and forth in front of a door. She seemed a little hesitant. Not long after, the door opened on its own. When Lanfeng saw it was Lu Yanqing, and immediately smiled. I knew it was you from the sound of your footsteps. Do you want to come in? With that said, he stepped aside to make room. Lu Yanqing nodded with a smile and walked in. After looking around the simple furnishings in the room, she stood in front of the window. When Lanfeng closed the door and walked in, he asked curiously, "What's the matter?" This was the first time Lu Yanqing had come to his room to look for him. Lu Yanqing was silent. She took out the invitation and handed it to Wen Lanfeng. I'll go with you Qianqiu tomorrow. I'm afraid you won't be able to see me and worry, so I'm telling you in advance. Wen Lanfeng held the invitation and looked at it for a while. Then he handed it back to her and sighed. I heard that the paradise of immortals is where the immortal palace is located. There are many experts there. It's a place I can't do anything about. What? Lu Yanqing, who was holding the invitation, didn't understand what it meant. When Lanfeng turned to face the window and smiled bitterly. In fact, it's not just the paradise of immortals. Maybe I can be considered an expert in the human world. But since coming to the immortal world, I've lost the qualifications to protect you. There are many experts everywhere in the immortal world. I don't even have the qualifications to protect myself, so how can I protect others? I've thought about this for a long time. It seems that it's time for me to leave you. What? What did you say? Lu Yanqing asked carefully. Are you going back to the human world? When Lanfeng shook his head and turned back to look at Lu Yanqing, he took a deep breath and smiled faintly. Only by cultivating in a higher level can one's cultivation be higher. Yanqing, when I'm not here, you must learn to take care of yourself. If I don't die, when we meet again in the future, I hope we can be fated to protect you again. As soon as he finished speaking, when Lanfeng strode out without looking back, Lu Yanqing cried out behind him. When Lanfeng, no. However, this time, when Lanfeng didn't even look back. With unprecedented courage, he disappeared outside the door. Lu Yanqing chased after him. In the living room on the 6th floor, Yu Qianqiu looked out the window with his hands behind his back. He said indifferently with an expressionless face, have you really made up your mind to leave the world commerce and go to the immortal world to cultivate alone? Behind him, Wen Lanfeng and Lu Yanqing stood side by side. Lu Yanqing looked at the two with anticipation. She hoped that Wen Lanfeng would change his mind, but also hoped that Yu Qianqiu would dissuade Wen Lanfeng from staying. Yes, Wen Lanfeng said firmly. Lu Yanqing looked at him and shook her head. A murderous intent flashed across Yu Qianqiu's face as he faced the crystal window. If he left Wen Lanfeng outside, then he would lose control of Wen Lanfeng. If for some unforeseen reason, Wen Lanfeng leaked the world commerce's secret, then the entire world commerce would be implicated, especially Yu Qianqiu himself. After considering it again and again, Yu Qianqiu twisted his fingers together and slowly said, I won't stop you if you want to leave, but you have to give me a reason to leave. I can't treat the lives of everyone in the world commerce as child's play. Otherwise, even if I agree, they won't agree. Not to mention Wen Lanfeng. Even Lu Yanqing felt the indistinct murderous intent on Yu Qianqiu's body. Lu Yanqing immediately panicked. She knew that Yu Qianqiu was the kind of person who would make a move when he said he would. Once he made a move, he wouldn't show mercy. Wen Lanfeng wasn't surprised at all. After dealing with Yu Qianqiu for so many years, she more or less understood Yu Qianqiu's nature. Instead, she calmly said, "I've already lost the ability to protect her. I hope to regain my ability to protect her." Yu Qianqiu slowly turned around to look at Lu Yanqing and said in confusion, "For her?" Then he nodded and said, "I understand. You can leave." "Thank you for your understanding. I have a request." "Speak." "I hope you can protect her safety." Just as Wen Lanfeng said this, Lu Yanqing shook her head with tears in her eyes and said, "Don't go." Yu Qianqiu glanced at Lu Yanqing and felt disdain in his heart. "Wen Lanfeng being able to come this far is all thanks to you. What else do you have to cry about?" He paused and said, "I will do my best to protect everyone in the world commerce, not just her. Leave quietly from the top floor. I don't want to alarm anyone." Wen Lanfeng nodded, thanked Huang Xiaolong once again, and turned to leave. However, Lu Yanqing couldn't help but pull his arm. Before she could plead, Yu Qianqiu teleported and slapped her on the back. Lu Yanqing fainted and fell to the ground. When Lanfeng looked at Lu Yanqing lying on the ground, a bitter smile appeared on his face. "Don't you know how to have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex?" Yu Qianqiu didn't want to talk nonsense. He took out a storage pouch and threw it to Wen Lanfeng. "I won't give you anything more. There are 100 million divine-grade spirit stones inside. Take care of yourself. If it's too dangerous and difficult outside, then come back. If you treat the world commerce as your home, then this is your home. Don't regard me as an outsider." "Thank you. I will not reveal any of the world commerce's secrets." When Lanfeng gave a guarantee, Yu Qianqiu smiled faintly. "If you had made a bunch of solemn promises when I asked you the reason, then you would have died in my hands by now. A man's backbone is the guarantee that he would rather die than submit. I believe in this. Let's go." Leaving Lu Yanqing alone on the ground, the two of them left together. Yu Qianqiu sent Wen Lanfeng to the top floor. Watching the resolute Wen Lanfeng disappear into the distance, he couldn't help sighing. It was hard for him to believe that someone with Wen Lanfeng's character could survive alone in the immortal world. Everything could only depend on his fate. Returning to the 6th floor, Yu Qianqiu bent over to pat Lu Yanqing awake, then sat on the rattan chair opposite her. What surprised him was that Lu Yanqing sat up and looked around after waking up, but she didn't see Wen Lanfeng's figure. She asked in a daze. "He left." "He left." Yu Qianqiu replied faintly. Lu Yanqing sat on the ground in a daze, motionless. She didn't cry or make a fuss, as if she had lost something precious. Yu Qianqiu looked at her silently for a while, then said slowly with a blank expression, "Actually, it's good that he left. At least it's not necessarily a bad thing for him. I really don't understand a woman like you. Since you can't give him anything, why do you still tie him with an invisible rope? He wants to get close to you, but you don't allow it. He wants to leave you, but you don't allow it. Then what do you want him to do? Do you want to drag him for a lifetime until he dies?" "I don't." Lu Yanqing subconsciously shook her head and argued. "Forget it. It's your own business whether you do or not. I can't control your thoughts. Don't lie on the ground. If others see you, they will think that I did something to you. Calm down, we still have to go to the Elysium Fairyland tomorrow." Yu Qianqiu stood up and asked again, "Do you want me to ask Li Duxing to look after you?" Lu Yanqing shook her head, slowly got up, then slowly turned around and left blankly. After finding the stairs outside, he held the handrail with one hand and slowly walked up the stairs step by step. Just like that, he walked all the way to the rooftop and came to the edge of the rooftop. He leaned against the white jade railing without saying a word. Yin Peng, who was also standing on the rooftop, looked at her in surprise. Usually, when she came up, she would nod and say hello to him. But when he paid a little attention, he found that there was something wrong with her mental state. Just like that, she stood there in a daze until the sky turned dark, and from the starry sky until the sun rose and the sky brightened. The next morning, Yu Qianqiu came to the rooftop early to wait after giving some instructions to his subordinates. He was mainly worried that Daming Luan would come early. After all, it was already very good that they were willing to bring him. How could he let them wait for a long time? As soon as he came up, he naturally saw Lu Yanqing, who had been standing here all night. However, he didn't know that Lu Yanqing had been standing here all night. He thought that she had come here to make preparations in advance like him. He walked to her and asked, "Have you thought it through?" Lu Yanqing looked at him and looked into the distance. She said lightly, "I've thought it through. You're right. I was wrong. In fact, I'm the one who should go." What a mess. Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes and happened to see a golden light appear on the ground. It was Daming Luan. He quickly pulled Lu Yanqing to pay his respects. Daming Luan looked at Lu Yanqing in surprise. Obviously, he didn't expect that there was such a stunning beauty around Yu Qianqiu. He frowned and said, "You're taking her? Does Bai Suzhen know?" The meaning behind his words seemed to be, "Does your wife know?" Yu Qianqiu knew that he had misunderstood and quickly explained, "She's a friend of Mu Tianjiao's. She also received an invitation, so she's going with us." So that's how it is. Daming Luan didn't ask any more questions. He released a flying shuttle and flashed on it. After the other two came up, he nodded at Yin Peng and drove the flying shuttle away. Chapter 907. A ray of light quickly flew across the sky. The great bright wheel drove the flying shuttle at a very fast speed, causing the depressed Lu Yanqing to look around in shock. This was the first time she had tried flying at such a fast speed. However, to Yu Qianqiu it was nothing. After all, he was someone who had seen it before. It was much slower than when he was sitting on Wei Chuanqiu and Yin Peng. In the immortal world, the illusory immortal city and the paradise immortal realm were both in the sealed immortal prefecture of the 13 great immortal prefectures, so the distance was not very far. But even so, with the great bright wheel's speed, it still took them half a day. After half a day, a vast sea of clouds appeared in front of them. The sea of fog faintly emitted colorful rays of light. Mountain peaks were faintly discernible in the fog, and there were all kinds of birds flying in and out of the fog. The beautiful scenery of the paradise immortal realm was too much for the eyes to take in. Yu Qianqiu and the others were clearly not the only people who came to congratulate Wu Xiong's wedding. The various rays of light flying in all directions were proof. Just as Yu Qianqiu and Lu Yanqing were looking around, the flying shuttle entered a dense layer of clouds and suddenly stopped. Yu Qianqiu asked suspiciously, "Have we arrived?" The great bright wheel turned around and glanced at them. "The two of you can alight here. The Paradise Immortal Realm does not allow outsiders to fly without permission. It is not convenient for me to bring you into the Paradise Immortal Realm in front of everyone. Follow this direction, and there will naturally be people to receive you and make arrangements." "Oh." Yu Qianqiu cupped his hands in thanks. "Thank you very much, Master." Lu Yanqing also thanked him. The two of them then flew out of the flying shuttle. After the great bright wheel waved his hand and kept the flying shuttle, he turned into a ray of light and instantly flashed out of the dense layer of clouds. The two of them looked at each other like headless flies. After all, they were unfamiliar with the place, and in front of them was the legendary Paradise Immortal Realm, where the immortal emperor lived. The two of them were somewhat nervous, but this was also good. It temporarily allowed Lu Yanqing to escape from her depressed state. After that, the two of them emerged from the thick layer of clouds. The streams of light that were flying in from all directions also revealed themselves and slowed down. After all, the Paradise Immortal Realm was right in front of them. No one dared to barge in. Lu Yanqing had never seen such a big scene before. She carefully followed behind Yu Qianqiu, and Yu Qianqiu's skin was always thick. Although she was not familiar with the road, it was definitely right to follow the crowd. At first glance, he seemed to be familiar with the road. Lu Yanqing is like a shy little wife, closely following behind Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu looks around and leads her to follow the crowd towards the sea of clouds and fog. Not long after, they arrived at the edge of the mountain range of the Paradise Immortal Realm. In front of them, there is a large area of simple houses that have been temporarily built, and there are already many people who have arrived early. Everyone landed on the outskirts of the simple house. Yu Qianqiu and Yu Qianqiu landed as well. There were quite a few golden-robed men standing on the roof of the simple house. There was a golden-robed man every 20 meters. All of them were looking down with gleaming eyes. Under the simple entrance archway, there is a row of golden-robed people standing on both sides. The people who enter show them the token that represents their sect. After all, not everyone can come to such an occasion. Because of Lu Yanqing's outstanding appearance, she immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding people. When they found out that she is only in the middle stage of the soul formation stage, a trace of evil flashed in some people's eyes. However, because it is here, no one dares to act recklessly, so there is no trouble. Then these people discovered that Lu Yanqing is closely following behind Yu Qianqiu. They can't help but check Yu Qianqiu's cultivation. But in the end, no one can see through Yu Qianqiu's background, so they immediately restrain themselves a lot. Although there is beauty in front of them, if they offend someone they can't afford to offend, they will lose their life. And that will not be fun. This one is the sect master of Lingjia sect Fudong. This friend looks very unfamiliar. May I know which sect you are an expert from? A dark and swarthy man dressed in gray asked Yu Qianqiu with his fists cupped. Yu Qianqiu tilted his head to take a look, and found that the other person looks like a person who just climbed out of a coal mine. His skin is not ordinary black. Seeing that it is him who asked the question, he immediately cupped his fists and replied, "This one is the sect master of world commerce, Yu Qianqiu." The dark and brawny man Fu Dong choked on the spot and was speechless. Yu Qianqiu can be said to be a famous person in the immortal world. He is an awesome person who dares to go against the Heartless Palace. Even if they have not seen him, they have heard of his name for a long time. However, the surrounding people do not seem to give this awesome person face. After hearing Yu Qianqiu's name, they all subconsciously squeezed out, not willing to get close to him, afraid that they will be misunderstood by the Heartless Palace. Yu Qianqiu glanced around and found that it is much more empty. It is no longer so crowded. Lu Yanqing, who is shrinking, immediately feels a lot more comfortable. Fu Dong silently turned his head, wanting to pretend that nothing has happened. However, in his heart, he wants to slap himself. Why am I so unlucky? I just wanted to strike up a conversation, and I have to meet this guy. Forgive me for being ignorant. May I know what Brother Fu's Lingjia sect is proficient in? Yu Qianqiu thought that since he has nothing to do, it is not a bad thing to chat and make more friends. Fu Dong, who had already followed the crowd to the memorial arch, took a big step forward. After showing his sect's token, he quickly slipped inside. His Lingjia sect was just a small unranked sect. He really didn't want to be misunderstood by a colossus like the Heartless Palace. Otherwise, the consequences would be very tragic. Thinking about the two surviving sect masters of the 4 islands of Lake Light in the illusory immortal city, they have been hiding everywhere, but still could not escape the pursuit of the Heartless Palace. Moreover, they have implicated their entire sect. Really, what is the hurry? Yu Qianqiu muttered, and also took out his sect token for the golden-robed guard to see. His keepsake was made by himself. It was just a token made of nether iron. However, the 4 words World Chamber of Commerce carved on it were a bit special. It was made of a dozen kinds of messy metals and looked very colorful. World Commerce. The golden-robed guard looked at the token again and suddenly asked, "You are the sect master of the World Commerce, Yu Qianqiu?" As soon as he said this, everyone nearby looked at Yu Qianqiu. Under everyone's gaze, Yu Qianqiu asked curiously, "May I ask if there is a problem?" Behind the row of golden-robed guards, there is a golden-robed man standing with his hands behind his back. When he heard this, he walked over and looked directly at Lu Yanqing. He cupped his fists and said, "May I ask if this is Lady Lu Yanqing Lu?" Lu Yanqing did not know what happened, nor did she know what to say. She just nodded her head. The row of golden-robed men immediately made way. The golden-robed man at the back waved his hand and said, "Madam has been waiting for a long time. The commander has ordered me to welcome you. Please follow me, Lady Lu." Everyone nearby looked at Lu Yanqing. They did not know where she came from. She actually alarmed Wu Xiong to personally send someone to welcome her. This was really a big deal. Lu Yanqing looked at Yu Qianqiu at a loss. Yu Qianqiu was stunned and then understood. Mu Tianjiao had specially sent someone to welcome Lu Yanqing. Then he coughed and said to Lu Yanqing, "Since the commander's wife has invited you, Then you should go. Nothing will happen. Lu Yanqing had no choice but to walk over. Before leaving, she even looked back at Yu Qianqiu a few times, before flying away with the golden-robed man. A row of golden-robed guards stood in place, and one of them returned Yu Qianqiu's sect token. Yu Qianqiu walked in with a stomach full of opinions. He thought to himself that Mu Tianjiao was too unkind. She only invited Lu Yanqing but not him. However, he did not think about it. At this time, it was not convenient for Mu Tianjiao to invite a man like him. He had to pay attention to his image. As soon as he entered, he saw that the house was filled with acquaintances exchanging greetings with each other, while he was alone, without a single acquaintance. So he thought of Fu Dong, who he had just met. Then he should start making some friends. With this thought in mind, Yu Qianqiu began to wander around the house with his hands behind his back. The greetings he heard were either, "This sect master has been doing well," or, "That sect master has been doing well since we last met." Greetings of Soto sect master rang in his ears. Although they were all dog fart sect masters, Yu Qianqiu still smacked his lips. Looking around, there were at least 7,000 to 8,000 people here. Just a single Wu Xiong's wedding had so many sect masters coming to congratulate him. Just the value of the congratulatory gifts was enough to scare a person. Those who came here to send gifts, the value of their gifts would not be less than 100 million divine great spirit stones. Even if the gift given to Wu Xiong was less than that, those big sects would definitely be very generous with their gifts. 10 to 8,000 people. That was at least 1 trillion divine great spirit stones. It was easy to imagine how terrifying the number of gifts accumulated would be. How many sects could not earn that much money in their entire lives? The more Yu Qianqiu thought about it, the more shocked he became. No wonder the Immortal Palace was said to be the wealthiest sect. It would be hard for them not to be rich. This was just a senior commander's wedding. Yu Qianqiu sighed as he shuttled through the crowd. His eyes lit up as he finally found the swarthy sect master of the first spirit sect, Fu Dong, chatting with someone. If it wasn't for the fact that the other party's skin was black, he would have easily missed him due to the dazzling crowd. Yu Qianqiu immediately cut in, excitedly rushing to Fu Dong's side, cupping his hands in greeting. "Brother Fu, nice to meet you. I didn't expect to see you here. What a coincidence." Seeing him, Fu Dong's face tightened. One of the men chatting with Fu Dong sized up Yu Qianqiu, asking Fu Dong, "Brother Fu, may I know who this friend is? Can you introduce him to us?" "I dare not." Even without Fu Dong's introduction, Yu Qianqiu had already cupped his hands in greeting. "This one is World Commerce's sect master Yu Qianqiu." The surrounding people turned to look at him. "Oh, so it's sect master Yu." That man's face tightened, but he reacted quickly, cupping his hands in greeting. "My apologies, I forgot something important. I'll take my leave first." With that said, he disappeared through the crowd. Hee. Yu Qianqiu shook his head with a smile. When he retrieved his gaze, he noticed that Fu Dong was walking in another direction without saying a word. Yu Qianqiu was slightly stunned, but he quickly chased after Fu Dong. Chapter 908. None of them were ordinary people. Plus, they weren't concealing themselves. How could they not know that someone was following them? Fu Dong turned left and right as he quickly walked to a relatively remote place with fewer people. He suddenly turned around to look at Yu Qianqiu and asked somewhat helplessly, "Sect Master Yu, why are you following me?" Yu Qianqiu was also feeling gloomy. He could tell that the other party wanted to rid himself of the suspicion. He couldn't help but frown and say, "It's not that I don't want to let you go, but I've discovered that Sect Master Fu looks down on me. I wonder what I've done wrong to make Sect Master Fu avoid me, and feel that it's beneath you to associate with me?" "Sect Master Yu, why do you say that? When did I look down on you?" Fu Dong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Then why are you avoiding me?" Yu Qianqiu looked Fu Dong up and down. Although he couldn't see through Fu Dong's cultivation, he had never even heard of Ling Jia sect. So Fu Dong's cultivation couldn't be that high. He narrowed his eyes and snorted coldly. Yu Qianqiu, am not someone who can be insulted by just anyone. If you don't give me a good explanation today, don't blame me for bringing experts to your Ling Jia sect for a spar." This was an undisguised and direct threat. Fu Dong was tongue-tied and speechless. His cultivation was about the same as the 4 sect leaders of the 4 islands of Lake and Light. He admitted that he was not Yu Qianqiu's match. Besides, who else could be called experts in the world commerce besides Yunpeng and Wei Chuanqiu? If Yu Qianqiu really brought people to their door, Lingjia Gate would probably be erased from the immortal world. Sect Master Yu, please don't misunderstand. I don't have any intention of looking down on you. It's just that the grudge between your sect and Heartless Palace is too deep. My Lingjia Gate is weak and doesn't dare to attract Heartless Palace's attention. Fu Dong cupped his hands and smiled bitterly. Sect Master Yu, please be magnanimous and don't make things difficult for me. So that's why. Yu Qianqiu's brows raised. Now he finally understood why everyone avoided him like a snake, or a scorpion the moment they heard his name. At the beginning, he thought that it was because of the battle at the illusory immortal city's life and death mound that made him famous. But it turned out that everyone was still afraid of the Heartless Palace. Yu Qianqiu looked around at the bustling crowd. It seemed like as long as Heartless Palace was still powerful in the immortal world, small sects like Fu Dong wouldn't dare to make friends with him. Other than those big sects that weren't afraid of Heartless Palace, the World Commerce Association was destined to be isolated. Thinking that it was meaningless to make things difficult for Fu Dong, just as he was about to tell him to get lost, he saw that there was a back door guarded by 2 golden-robed men, not far away from them. It just so happened that a few people showed their golden invitation cards and left through the back door unimpeded. Why did they leave through the back door? Yu Qianqiu asked. Fu Dong looked in the direction he was looking at and replied, I heard that the top 50 sects and top 50 commerce associations in the immortal world all received Wu Xiong's invitation. Adding them together, they are the top 100 sects in the immortal world. People like us, who didn't receive an invitation, can only drink a cup of wine in this simple house. As for those who received an invitation, they can enter the residence of the Immortal Palace's External Affairs Commander in the Paradise Immortal Realm and become a distinguished guest. Invitation card? Yu Qianqiu took out the golden invitation card and handed it to Fu Dong. Is this the invitation card you're talking about? Fu Dong opened the invitation card and looked at it speechlessly. He thought of the rumor that Yu Qianqiu and Mu Tianjiao were friends and thought, why are you following me around even though you have an invitation card? Fu Dong nodded speechlessly and returned the invitation card to him. Yu Qianqiu held the invitation card and patted it thoughtfully. Then, he cupped his hands at Fu Dong and said, I'll take my leave first, lest I make things difficult for sect leader Fu. If you're not afraid of Heartless Palace finding trouble with you, sect leader Fu, why don't you come to my World Chamber of Commerce when you're free? I welcome you at any time. Farewell. With that said, he strode to the back door and showed the golden-robed guard the invitation in his hand. After asking for the direction of Wu Xiong's residence, he smoothly left through the back door. Watching him leave, Fu Dong heaved a sigh of relief. He thought, I can't wait to hide from you, so why would I go to your World Chamber of Commerce? Holding the invitation card meant that Yu Qianqiu had obtained the right to fly within the mountain range of the immortal land of bliss. However, this did not mean that he could roam freely within the immortal land of bliss. There were guards at a certain distance in the air, monitoring those who came to attend the banquet, all the way to Wu Xiong's residence. Yu Qianqiu had no choice but to obediently fly forward. Along the way, his eyes would light up every time he caught a glimpse of all sorts of rare immortal herbs appearing in the mountains and rivers below. They were slender and elegant, so alluring. However, these rare and precious immortal herbs seemed to have lost their value here, no different from wild grasses in the barren hills. Yu Qianqiu saw with his own eyes a giant wild beast rolling on the ground, trampling an immortal herb worth several 100 million divine-grade spirit stones into dregs, causing him to feel heartache. Although it was an unintentional scene, Yu Qianqiu was inwardly apprehensive. The things that sects in the immortal world fought and killed each other for were things that the Immortal Palace did not even spare a glance for. One could see the Immortal Palace's wealth and strength at a glance. Curse that neighbor. Initially, Yu Qianqiu had prepared a stock of immortal herb worth 500 million divine-grade spirit stones as a congratulatory gift. But now, he really couldn't bring himself to take it out. He couldn't possibly take out a stalk of wild grass as a congratulatory gift, right? On top of a mountain shrouded in clouds and mist, stood a majestic courtyard that resembled a crouching tiger and coiling dragon. Yu Qianqiu descended outside the high walls. The main entrance was a gatehouse, and on top of the gatehouse was a large golden plaque with the words External Affairs Grand Commander Manor engraved on it. There were golden-robed guards guarding the gatehouse from top to bottom. Yu Qianqiu took a quick glance around, and his pupils suddenly shrunk. His entire body froze on the spot. In the distance, there was a mountain peak hovering in the sky, and on top of the mountain peak was a majestic golden palace, shrouded in resplendent golden light. The majestic palace was faintly discernible amidst the clouds and mist, exuding a dignified and solemn atmosphere. At first, Yu Qianqiu thought that it was an illusion created by the multicolored sunglow, but upon closer inspection, he discovered that it was true. The mountain floating in the air was actually the upper half of the mountain below. The entire mountain had been cut in half by someone. Half of it was on the ground, while the other half was inconceivably floating in the air. He truly had no idea how it was done. Immortal Palace. This word suddenly popped up in Yu Qianqiu's mind. He stood there silently for a moment, then slowly exhaled. In his heart, he was almost certain that the palace hovering in the air was the Immortal Palace, because he couldn't think of any other palace that dared to stand above the entire blissful paradise. Looking around at the surrounding mountains, there were many that looked similar to the Wuxiong residence, but only that golden palace hovering in the air was the only one. When Yu Qianqiu's gaze slowly moved away, his gaze paused on the second peak beside the main peak. It was as if he saw a crystal palace, different from the other palaces on the surrounding mountains. However, he didn't pay too much attention to it. Holding the golden invitation in his hand, he walked to the gatehouse. The guard opened the invitation and shouted, "The World Commerce Conference's guests have arrived." Chapter 909. Damn it! Do I need to shout so loudly to introduce my small World Commerce Association? Yu Qianqiu silently cursed. Standing at the entrance, he could already see a large group of people inside the wall. Each of them had an extraordinary aura. Those who could come here represented the various large sections. There was no need to guess to know what kind of experts they were. What gave Yu Qianqiu goosebumps was that after the guard called out his small World Commerce Association, the experts inside gave him too much face. They all turned their heads to look at him. Each of their gazes were like torches, causing Yu Qianqiu to almost shiver. That feeling was like taking a shower in a room, and suddenly a wall fell down, and a group of people happened to be standing outside, seeing her naked body, and there was no place to hide. Standing at the entrance, Yu Qianqiu was stuck between a rock and a hard place. After some delay, he walked in with a smile on his face. He nodded at the people looking at him in a friendly manner. However, most of them turned their heads back with disdain. It seemed like no one was willing to greet him. Yu Qianqiu also knew his place. He knew that they were looking down on him. This was very normal. After all, the World Commerce Association, whether it was strength or status in the immortal world, was far inferior to the various sections. To put it bluntly, they did not have the qualifications to gather with everyone. Moreover, the people here were usually arrogant people. There were 100 to 200 people in the courtyard. They were either in pairs, or in groups of 3 to 5 as they chatted. Many people's gazes would faintly glance at Yu Qianqiu, who was walking in alone. Yu Qianqiu looked left and right, and found that there was no one he knew. Moreover, he could see that everyone was not very friendly towards him. Thus he decided that it was best not to provoke them. Thus, he obediently bypassed the crowd, and walked to a pavilion in the corner alone. He sat down and looked around leisurely. However, everything was about karma. He couldn't be at ease even if he wanted to. Yu Qianqiu, who was sitting leisurely in the pavilion, was suddenly startled. He saw a sturdy old man dressed in blue walk out from the crowd. The people who were chatting in the courtyard also looked over, and they all suspected that they were here to watch the show. Yu Qianqiu could tell from the other party's clothing that he was from the Heartless Palace. The blue-clothed elder slowly walked into the pavilion. He looked down at Yu Qianqiu with contempt and said, "Are you Yu Qianqiu of the World Chamber of Commerce?" Yu Qianqiu stood up with a smile on his face. He cupped his hands and said, "This junior is indeed Yu Qianqiu. May I know how to address senior?" "Ignorant junior. Do you think you are worthy of knowing this old man's name?" The blue-clothed old man said indifferently. The smile on Yu Qianqiu's face gradually froze. The anger in his stomach instantly erupted. Just as he was about to retort, he heard someone laugh and say, "Songyan Xian as a senior, why are you making things difficult for a junior?" A fat man walked out with a smile. It was Wan Buoxing's youngest son, Wan Lihong. He had come to congratulate Wu Xiong on his father's great joy. Songyan Xian. Yu Qianqiu was slightly shocked. He had heard of this person before. He was the grandfather of the person he had killed outside the ruins of the god. Did he know that he had killed his grandson? Songyan Xian tilted his head and sneered. "Wan Lihong, you are also a junior in front of me. Since when was it your turn to interfere in my affairs?" Wan Lihong walked into the pavilion nonchalantly. He first nodded at Yu Qianqiu in a friendly manner, then turned to Songyan Xian and said, "Your eyes have always been on top of your head. How would I dare to interfere in your affairs? I just wanted to remind you out of goodwill that this is not your heartless palace. Don't be rash and make things worse. Otherwise, the one who will be embarrassed is you. What does it have to do with me? If you have the guts, why don't you jump here and watch? Be careful that you won't be able to return. But I don't think you have the guts to do that." Even though Yu Qianqiu didn't know who Wan Lihong was, he could tell from Wan Lihong's clothes that he was a subordinate of Wan Gutong. Wan Lihong's status in Wan Gutong was probably not ordinary. Wan Lihong must know that he was an immortal emperor's secret agent. Otherwise, why would he come out to talk back to the Heartless Palace? Being exposed by Wan Lihong, Songyan Xian's face twitched. He indeed didn't have the guts to cause trouble here. He snorted coldly and ignored Wan Lihong. He stared at Yu Qianqiu and asked in a low voice, "Let this old man ask you, why do you keep going against my Heartless Palace?" Yu Qianqiu slowly stood up, his face expressionless as he replied, "When did I keep going against your Heartless Palace? Who's the one that keeps going against who? Everyone in the world has eyes. You can't just randomly accuse someone of something. Even though bullying others is a common thing in the immortal world, no one can deny that justice exists in the hearts of the people." Wan Lihong nodded in agreement. The others also exchanged glances with each other, a little surprised. They didn't think that Yu Qianqiu would have such guts to speak to Songyan Xian in such a manner. Songyan Xian narrowed his eyes and said word by word, "You still dare to quibble? Do you want to die?" Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but sneer. Now that things had come to this, he finally understood that there was a dead knot between him and the Heartless Palace that couldn't be untied even if he wanted to. No matter how much he endured, the Heartless Palace wouldn't let him go. Since that was the case, why should he endure it? At least here, the Heartless Palace wouldn't dare to do anything to him. So there was nothing to be afraid of. "Do you want to die?" Yu Qianqiu sneered and said, "Anyone can bully others, but what can you do to me? I'm standing right here. Do you dare to touch me?" His tone was a little overbearing. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. They all thought that this brat really didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Even if the Heartless Palace didn't dare to do anything to him here, could he hide in the Paradise Immortal Realm for the rest of his life? Wan Lihong's eyes, on the other hand, lit up with joy. She hoped that the Heartless Palace and Yu Qianqiu would make a big deal out of this. With Yu Qianqiu's identity as an immortal emperor's secret agent, the Heartless Palace would definitely be the one to suffer in the end. Being provoked like this in front of everyone, Songyan Xian was extremely angry. His entire body emitted a tyrannical aura, as he said with a ferocious expression, "Let's see how long you can hide in the Paradise Immortal Realm." Yu Qianqiu sneered and said, "You better shut your mouth. Since you've angered me, I'll fight it out with you right now. I want to see if you dare to fight me here or not." Hee. The barefooted is not afraid of those wearing shoes. This old man's life is worthless, so I don't mind dragging an old dog like you down with me. The moment he finished speaking, suppressed laughter came from the surroundings. There were even people who laughed without restraint. Clearly, many people were happy to see Sungin Xian being insulted. "You dare to threaten me?" Killing intent suddenly erupted from Sungin Xian's body. He was truly angered by the other party's insults. He said fiercely, "This old man can't wait for you to make the first move. At that time, it would be natural for this old man to kill you in self-defense." "Kill you in self-defense? You were clearly the one who provoked me first. I was the one who was forced to retaliate," Yu Qianqiu said mockingly. "There are so many people watching. You don't have the final say. You have to ask how everyone will testify when the time comes." And Wan Lihong, who was at the side, nodded emotionally when he heard this. Justice is in the hearts of the people. Since he was so cooperative, the meaning behind his words was very clear. Sungin Xian's expression changed slightly. He was arrogant, but he was not a fool. Usually, the various sects would give way to the Heartless Palace, because they were not as strong as the Heartless Palace. However, if everyone really seized the opportunity to destroy the Heartless Palace, they would probably attack together. At that time, they might really not be able to return. "You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Sungin Xian retracted his killing intent and said indifferently, "On account of Great Commander Wu, I will not argue with you for now. After this, I want to see what ability you have to leave this paradise wonderland." Throwing down a ruthless sentence, Sungin Xian turned and left. Yu Qianqiu was not to be outdone. He laughed coldly behind Sungin Xian. "How I leave is none of your concern. In any case, you don't have the ability to make me stay." Sungin Xian looked back at him with a sinister smile. There was no need for him to say anything, and he walked away unhurriedly. Everyone looked at Yu Qianqiu with pity. They reckoned that Yu Qianqiu would not be able to see tomorrow's sunrise. Wan Lihong, who was in the pavilion, did not have such worries. She smiled at Yu Qianqiu and left. In the end, Yu Qianqiu was left alone in the pavilion. No one came to pay attention to him. He was very clear that if he did not have the ability, he did not have the qualifications to ask for help from others. If this Wan Lihong did not mistakenly believe that he was really the Celestial Emperor's trusted secret agent, she would not have come to help him. Who would want to offend a colossus like the Heartless Palace for a minor character? Just like this, the sky was filled with the glow of the sunset. Only then did the golden-robed guards from the great commander's residence come to receive everyone and invite them to the back garden. The back garden was filled with rows of tables and chairs. The tables were filled with all kinds of rare fruits and nectar. Once everyone entered the back garden, they all went into a house with an open door. They placed the gifts they brought on the long table inside the house, and after they came out, they all sat down. Most of them sat at a table of 4. Yu Qianqiu followed suit. He also entered the house and placed his gift on the long table. After he came out, he looked around. Although there were still some empty tables, with his status, he guessed that no one would be willing to sit with him. Thus, he chose an empty table at the back and sat down. Looking at the table full of rare fruits and nectar, Yu Qianqiu was somewhat speechless. There was wine, but the dishes were made with these rare fruits. This was because all the high-class families in the celestial realm did this. Actually, these fruits should not be underestimated. They were all rare treasures that were beneficial to cultivation. Ordinary people would not be able to eat them. However, this was the first time that Yu Qianqiu had experienced such a scene, so he was not used to it. There were no signs of lanterns or decorations in the surroundings. It was very different from the wedding he had imagined. He alone occupied a large table in a corner. Although he did not think much of it, in the eyes of others, he seemed very unsociable and abnormally miserable. The sky gradually darkened, but the entire great commander's residence was brightly lit. It was as bright as day. Then a loud voice sang, "The newlyweds have arrived." The door of the loft that overlooked the entire back garden opened with a creak. 2 groups of golden-robed guards filed out and lined up on both sides. From the main door, Wu Xiong and Mu Tianjiao slowly walked out together. Behind the newlyweds were Deming Luan and Mu Bing. Everyone at the bottom of the stairs stood up and cupped their fists. For a moment, The sound of congratulating the newlyweds rang out in the garden. Chapter 9-10. Today, Mu Tianjiao was exceptionally beautiful. She had changed into a golden robe from head to toe, and wore a golden phoenix crown on her head, which complemented the imposing Wu Xiong. One was a graceful and dainty heroine, while the other was the external affairs commander of the immortal palace who held great power. One soft and one hard, they were a match made in heaven. It was said that a woman was at her most beautiful when she married. Standing in the corner, Yu Qianqiu could not help but sigh. This Mu Tianjiao had indeed married the right person. With Wu Xiong supporting her, she would no longer have to endure so much hardship as a woman. Looking behind her, her father Mu Bing was scanning the crowd below with spirited eyes. He seemed exceptionally happy. It seemed that her father was also quite satisfied with this marriage. Beside Mu Bing, De Mingluan stood there expressionlessly. However, from the position he was standing at, it was the position of the groom's closest relative. Clearly, his relationship with Wu Xiong was not ordinary. On the steps, Wu Xiong looked around and raised his hand. Immediately, a golden-robed guard came over with a tray. Wu Xiong and Mu Tianjiao each took a cup of wine from the tray. Wu Xiong raised his cup with both hands and said, "Today is Wu Xiong's wedding. Wu Xiong is very grateful to all the heroes of the various sections. My wife and I would like to toast to everyone." The husband and wife looked at each other and smiled. They raised their cups at the same time, and drained it in one gulp. Everyone below also raised their cups and drained it. After downing a cup of wine, Mu Tianjiao's bright eyes scanned the crowd below. She did not see Yu Qianqiu in the crowd. Finally, she saw Yu Qianqiu standing alone in the corner. She then looked at the elders of the various sects present, and immediately understood. She could not help but feel a little ashamed and blame herself for not considering it thoroughly. Although she had invited him with good intentions, she had undoubtedly embarrassed him. There was no place for him here. Yu Qianqiu's position was actually the most conspicuous. Even Wu Xiong could not help but be startled when he saw him standing alone and miserable. De Mingluan only glanced at him for a moment. When Mu Bing saw Yu Qianqiu, he frowned. "There are colleagues of the immortal palace in the garden next door. My wife and I will take our leave. Please, everyone, drink to your heart's content." Wu Xiong cupped his hands to the crowd, while Mu Tianjiao bowed slightly. Amidst the applause of the crowd, the two made an appearance and left. However, Big Mingluan and Mu Bing were left behind to entertain the guests. Some immortal palace guards followed the two of them down the stairs. The two of them went to two sides and began to toast table by table. Mu Bing was particularly happy. The guests at the table were all people he would have had difficulty meeting in the past, but now they were all smiling and congratulating him. He was so happy that his mouth almost didn't stop moving. Amidst the compliments, he felt a little carried away. On the other hand, De Mingluan appeared much colder. He only casually said things like, "Have a good drink," and the other guests at the table followed suit. No one dared to talk nonsense with him. Yu Qianqiu sat at the very back. Since they wouldn't be able to reach him anytime soon, he just hugged a juicy fruit and drank cup after cup of wine. In any case, people at their level of cultivation couldn't get drunk if they didn't want to. In fact, he was drowning his sorrows with wine. It wasn't because he felt lonely being ostracized by the crowd, but because he felt the gap between him and the other sex was too big. He also considered how difficult it would be for the world commerce to establish a foothold in the immortal realm. Just the Heartless Palace was enough of a headache. After Mu Bing finished toasting the last table in the row, he saw Yu Qianqiu hiding in the back. His smile froze, and he frowned slightly. To be honest, he felt that a person of Yu Qianqiu's level shouldn't have been invited to such an occasion. How could a small character like Yu Qianqiu be qualified to come to the Paradise Immortal Realm's Foreign Affairs Grand Commander's office? Now look at him. What did he look like on such a joyous occasion? He made it seem like he wasn't a good host. How unlucky. In fact, he was most worried that Wu Xiong would misunderstand, because Mu Tianjiao and Yu Qianqiu knew each other. Mu Tianjiao didn't invite any other male guests but Yu Qianqiu. How could he not be worried? He had always been against inviting Yu Qianqiu, but his daughter insisted. There was nothing he could do. Mu Bing frowned. He wanted to ignore Yu Qianqiu and go to another row to continue toasting. However, Yu Qianqiu stood up insensibly and raised his cup with a smile. Congratulations, President Mu. Congratulations. Mu Bing's brows immediately furrowed. However, Wu Xiong was congratulating him and smiling. It wasn't good to lose his composure on such a joyous occasion. Mu Bing suppressed his unhappiness and walked over with two golden-robed guards holding trays. Grey Cloud Xian, who paid attention to Yu Qianqiu from time to time, immediately noticed that Mu Bing didn't seem to like Yu Qianqiu. He immediately stood up and said in a clear voice, "Mr. Mu, I don't know what kind of background Yu Qianqiu has. He's actually qualified to be on an equal footing with us. It's really incredible." As soon as this was said, many people could see that Grey Cloud Xian was purely trying to embarrass Yu Qianqiu. On the other side, De Ming Luan, who was toasting, looked back at Grey Cloud Xian coldly. Mu Bing naturally knew what kind of person Grey Cloud Xian was in the immortal world. He turned back and raised his cup with an apologetic smile. Then he walked in front of Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu glanced at Grey Cloud Xian and couldn't be bothered with him. He raised his cup to Mu Bing and said, "Congratulations, President Mu. Congratulations on your daughter's wedding." He smiled and drank the wine in his cup in one gulp. "Yu Qianqiu, why are you sitting here alone?" Mu Bing asked indifferently. Because the two of them were acquaintances, Yu Qianqiu thought that Mu Bing was unhappy that he was being ignored and was concerned about him. He immediately smiled and said, "It's okay. The people sitting here are all experts from various sects in the immortal world. How can I, Yu Qianqiu, be ranked among the experts and sit together with the experts from various sects? So you also know. Since you know, why come here to humiliate yourself? Do you think this is a place that anyone can come to?" Mu Bing snorted and didn't say anything else. He raised his cup and drank it in one gulp. Then he turned around and left, going to another sect to continue toasting. Yu Qianqiu had just refilled his cup. He wanted to say some words of congratulations, but who knew that he would hear such words from the other party's mouth? He immediately raised his cup in a daze. This was something that he never dreamed of. He never thought that Mu Bing would actually say such words. Not to mention that he had once turned the tide in the ruins of God, when the Four Links Chamber of Commerce was in danger. No matter what, they had no enmity, and even had some friendship. Taking 10,000 steps back, he had also received an invitation. He didn't shamelessly stick his face here. Moreover, even if he wanted to be thick-skinned and come to this place, he wouldn't be able to enter without permission. He was smiling and didn't do anything to let Mu Bing down. But why did Mu Bing slap his face in front of everyone? Didn't he know that if he hadn't saved his daughter in the ruins of God, his daughter wouldn't be where she was today? Yu Qianqiu couldn't figure it out. He couldn't figure it out even if he was given 10,000 reasons. He couldn't figure it out even if he was beaten to death. At this time, Yu Qianqiu didn't think about other aspects, nor did he think that it was Mu Bing's problem. Instead, he was in a daze. First, he reflected on himself. Had he done something wrong? Had he done something taboo on the day of his daughter's wedding? If that was really the case, then he shouldn't have done it. No matter what, Mu Tianjiao had invited him as a friend. If he made her feel uncomfortable on her wedding day, then that would be too much of a sin. However, he really couldn't figure it out. He didn't know what he had done wrong. The only thing he had done out of line was quarreling with Grey Cloud Xian. That shouldn't be a big deal, right? Moreover, this matter was provoked by Grey Cloud Xian, but Mu Bing didn't give him any face. What did I do wrong? Yu Qianqiu raised his wine glass and stood there in a daze. He constantly reflected on himself and asked himself, but no matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't come up with an answer. The people around him who were drinking to their heart's content would look over from time to time. No one would sympathize with Yu Qianqiu for suffering such a great humiliation. In their eyes, Yu Qianqiu wasn't qualified to be on equal footing with them. Only Wan Lihong shook her head slightly in the crowd. She didn't know what medicine Mu Bing had taken. Putting aside the fact that Yu Qianqiu's background wasn't something he could afford to offend, today was his daughter's wedding. How could he say such a shameful thing to a guest who came to congratulate him? Haha. Stop daydreaming. Mr. Mu's words are very clear. This isn't a place that Yu Qianqiu has the right to come to. Grey Cloud Xian's sarcastic words jolted Yu Qianqiu awake from his contemplation. He inclined his head only to see Grey Cloud Xian coldly laughing. Right now, I really suspect that your invitation card is fake. I hope the people from the Grand Governor's manor can do a thorough check and see if there's someone who tried to sneak in. Yu Qianqiu ignored him and stared at Mu Bing. He suddenly asked loudly, President Mu, could it be that you really don't welcome me here? Mu Bing glanced at him and didn't reply. Instead, he continued to toast the guests. This action was undoubtedly very clear. Yu Qianqiu was so angry that his face turned red. His body trembled uncontrollably, and the wine in his wine glass was already sloshing out. He raised his voice again and asked, President Mu, could it be that you really don't welcome me here? Grey Cloud Xian stood up and sneered. What kind of place is this? What kind of occasion is this? Who dares to make such a fuss here? Mu Bing turned to look at the two golden-robed guards behind him, and said indifferently, There are so many guests today. Don't let anyone disturb the Grand Commander's business. The two golden-robed guards understood, and immediately teleported in front of Yu Qianqiu's table. Just as something was about to happen, De Mingluan suddenly appeared and blocked in front of the two guards. He stared at them coldly. The two golden-robed guards immediately bowed slightly, not daring to be impudent. De Mingluan took the wine jug from one of the men's tray and filled his glass with wine. When he put the glass back, he shouted, Back off. The two of them hurriedly retreated. De Mingluan swept his cold gaze over Mu Bing and finally stared at Grey Cloud Xian. He asked indifferently, Grey Cloud Xian, what are your intentions in sowing discord here? Are you trying to ruin this joyous occasion? Humph. Today, on account of Wu Xiong's wedding. If you dare to be impudent again, don't blame me for being impolite. He then raised his glass to Yu Qianqiu and said, Sect leader Yu, please don't blame me for my poor hospitality. Chapter 9:11. Once the Great Radiant Wheel appeared, the worsening situation immediately calmed down. Mu Bing's expression changed slightly. Of course, he knew what kind of person the Great Radiant Wheel was. It was the leader of the Chamber of Commerce Alliance. In the past, it would have been difficult for him to meet the Great Radiant Wheel. In terms of power, the Great Radiant Wheel was no weaker than his son-in-law Wu Xiong. For Wu Xiong to invite the Great Radiant Wheel as a guest, it was clear that the two had an extraordinary relationship. How could he disobey such a person? However, a sudden change in status often made people lose themselves. At this moment, Mu Bing was like a nouveau riche, feeling somewhat complacent. So many people he had to look up to in the past were now polite to him. He was somewhat at a loss. He had just expressed his dissatisfaction with Yu Qianqiu, but now the Great Radiant Wheel was toasting and apologizing to Yu Qianqiu in front of everyone. This was undoubtedly a slap in his face. This made him somewhat unhappy. Even so, he was not arrogant enough to dare object to the Great Radiant Wheel. He could only shut his mouth angrily. In his heart, he had already listed the Great Radiant Wheel as someone who didn't care about him. To put it bluntly, he bore a grudge. Songyan Xian's expression also changed slightly. He hadn't expected the Great Radiant Wheel to disrespect Wu Xiong's father-in-law for Yu Qianqiu. He couldn't help but think of Wei Chuanqiu and Yin Peng, who resided in the World Chamber of Commerce. He already somewhat understood. In terms of cultivation, Songyan Xian was not weaker than the Great Radiant Wheel. However, there was a great disparity in their backgrounds. He wouldn't dare do anything to the Great Radiant Wheel in Paradise Wonderland, even if he was 10 times more courageous. This was the Immortal Palace's territory. Moreover, this place wasn't far from the residence of the Emperor of the Immortal World. He had no choice but to shut his mouth. Chairman Mu, could it be that you really don't welcome me here? Yu Qianqiu ignored the Great Bright Wheel's toast of apology and asked the same question to Mu Bing for the third time with an ashen face. His voice and expression were already harsh, and he seemed to be unable to restrain himself. Everyone at the banquet was perfectly silent, yet they were secretly exchanging glances with each other, and their eyes were filled with ridicule. All of them were secretly ridiculing Yu Qianqiu for overestimating his ability, and actually daring to repeatedly shout at Wu Xiong's father-in-law. His fate was already a foregone conclusion, and he was truly the one who brought this upon himself. Mu Bing abruptly raised his head, his eyes filled with rage. His current status was extraordinary. He was no longer the submissive president of the Four Links Chamber of Commerce, who went around begging for help. He had a reverse scale, so how could he allow a mere Yu Qianqiu to question him like this? Mu Bing, who was on the verge of exploding, endured the cold gaze of the great bright wheel. Yu Qianqiu, don't act recklessly. This is not the place for you to behave atrociously. If things get out of hand, I won't be able to protect you under the feet of an immortal emperor. Even if you don't think about yourself, you have to think about Bai Suzhen and the girl you brought with you. After De Mingluan sent a sound transmission to warn him, he pushed his cup again and said, Commander Wu's wedding, sect leader Yu, please give me face and drink this cup to appease your anger. Yu Qianqiu looked at the great bright wheel and was slightly shocked. He understood that he was indeed a bit too impulsive. If he caused trouble, he could escape. But what about Lu Yanqing, who was here? Most importantly, if he offended the Immortal Palace, the World Chamber of Commerce would no longer have a foothold in the immortal realm, and neither would he have a foothold. Suppressing the anger in his heart, he slowly raised his cup to his mouth and drank it in one gulp. Then, he silently sat where he was without another word. Under the disdainful gazes of the crowd, he gradually calmed down. He never thought that Mu Bing, who was trembling with fear when it rained, was actually such a snobbish person. Moreover, he did it so ruthlessly. What a snobbish person. Actually, Yu Qianqiu didn't care about this kind of thing. He had seen too much of the hypocrisy of the world, and how dogs relied on their master's power. However, he never thought that he would send his own face to be slapped by others. This was completely asking for humiliation. A sense of humiliation and resentment surged in Yu Qianqiu's heart, making him have the urge to slaughter Mu Bing on the spot. Seeing that Yu Qianqiu had calmed down, the great bright will finally heaved a sigh of relief. If something happened to Yu Qianqiu here, he really wouldn't be able to explain it to Wei Chuanxiu when he got back. After sweeping his cold gaze across the audience, the great bright will turned and walked back to continue toasting. Seeing that Yu Qianqiu had admitted defeat after being humiliated, Grey Cloud Xian snickered coldly and sat down. However, these two sneers sounded so ear-piercing in Yu Qianqiu's ears. This was the mockery of the victor towards the loser. A kind person is bullied, a kind horse is ridden. If I don't fight back, wouldn't I, Yu Qianqiu, become a soft persimmon for anyone to pinch? Yu Qianqiu steeled his heart, and immediately flew into a rage. With a bang, he slammed the table and stood up. He narrowed his eyes and stared at Grey Cloud Xian. Everyone's gaze suddenly focused on him. Wan Lihong's eyes lit up as he thought to himself, is he going to flip out? Mu Bing snorted coldly and shouted, Yu Qianqiu, where do you think this is? How can you behave so atrociously here? Grey Cloud Xian also stood up with a sneer. He stared at the frowning Great Bright Wheel and laughed. Great Bright Wheel, you saw it for yourself. Someone is trying to deliberately cause trouble. You have to be fair. You can't favor one and discriminate against the other. Great Bright Wheel glanced at him and coldly shouted at Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu, I'm warning you for the last time. If you dare to behave atrociously again, don't blame me for being impolite. His words left some leeway for Yu Qianqiu to back down. You've misunderstood me. I definitely didn't mean to behave atrociously. It's just that I forgot to give something to the people of Heartless Palace. Because I suddenly remembered it, I couldn't control my emotions and disturbed everyone's mood. I'm truly sorry. Yu Qianqiu apologizes to everyone here. Yu Qianqiu smiled and cupped his fists as he apologized to everyone. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. They didn't know what Yu Qianqiu was up to. However, when they saw him suddenly smile and say such words, they all felt that things weren't so simple. There was definitely something fishy going on. Qianyun Xian's eyes flickered and he coldly said, I'm the only person from Heartless Palace here. I'm sure you have something to show me. Since that's the case, why beat around the bush and act mysterious? Just take it out. That's fine. I hope you can control your emotions after seeing it, and don't ruin Commander Wu's plans. Yu Qianqiu coldly smiled and took out a jade tablet, casually tossing it over. Everyone couldn't help but be curious. They didn't know what Yu Qianqiu wanted to show Qianyun Xian. Qianyun Xian caught it and glanced at it indifferently. He saw a pure white jade tablet with the words Lian Qing engraved on it. His eyes couldn't help but widen. He teleported in front of Yu Qianqiu and shouted angrily, "Where did you get this thing?" His voice was like thunder. Probably everyone in the commander's residence could hear him. Everyone couldn't help but secretly click their tongues. They didn't know what Qianyun Xian saw. He actually disregarded the situation and lost his composure like this. Later, when a large number of people from Immortal Palace were alerted, they would see how he would deal with this. This jade tablet wasn't actually anything valuable. It was just a jade tablet that Yu Qianqiu found in Qianyun Xian's storage bracelet after he killed his grandson, Song Lianqing, outside the ruins of God. It could represent his identity. This jade tablet might not be much to others, but to Qianyun Xian, it was very important. When any disciple of Heartless Palace died, there would be feedback from Heartless Palace. Song Lianqing's death was naturally no exception. However, ever since he received news of Song Lianqing's death, Qianyun Xian mobilized a large number of people, but still couldn't find Song Lianqing's corpse. He originally didn't have any hope, but he didn't expect to suddenly see his grandson's jade tablet here. How could he not be shocked? Do you think I need to tell you? Yu Qianqiu sat down with a sarcastic expression. He poured a cup of wine and slowly drank it. Suddenly, he realized that the wine tasted much better than before. He couldn't help but click his tongue and say, "It's really good wine." The reason why he wasn't afraid of the trouble of revealing this thing was because he knew that there was no room for reconciliation with Qianyun Xian. Once he left Paradise Wonderland, Qianyun Xian would definitely kill him. Since that was the case, he naturally had to retaliate. Otherwise, if the matter of today's humiliation spread out, how would he still have the face to face his subordinates? "You're the one who killed my grandson, Song Lianqing," Qianyun Xian said angrily. The moment these words came out, everyone was in an uproar. They all understood what Yu Qianqiu showed Qianyun Xian. It was definitely a keepsake of his grandson, Song Lianqing. De Mingluan's brows knitted together. He realized that this Yu Qianqiu really wasn't afraid of blowing things up. He actually showed this thing at this time. Almost at the same time Qianyun Xian said this, a person in white flashed out from the crowd. He stared at Yu Qianqiu with a burning gaze and said, "Chai Junlang was also killed by you?" This person was Xiaoyao Palace Master Chai Xiaoyao's eldest disciple, Ma Fengnan. Because he knew that Chai Junlang and Song Lianqing got into an accident on the same day, and the two of them were together every day during that period of time, he naturally had a reason to question Chai Junlang. "Chai Junlang." Yu Qianqiu shook his head and said, "I don't know who Chai Junlang is, but based on the information I heard, I guess it should be the guy with the white jade folding fan." He was referring to the image of Chai Junlang, who boasted of his elegance and elegance. Ma Fengnan's pupil shrank and he said sternly, "So you admit that you killed him?" No. Please don't misunderstand. I didn't kill him." Yu Qianqiu pointed at Qianyun Xian, who wanted to kill him, and pointed at the jade pendant in Qianyun Xian's hand. He said, "When I saw the guy with the white jade folding fan, he should be Chai Junlang. He seemed to be quarreling with the owner of this jade pendant over a woman. In the end, the two of them fought with their lives on the line. Unfortunately, Chai Junlang's skills were inferior, and he was killed by the owner of this jade pendant, Song Lianqing. He died a miserable death. I don't know what kind of deep hatred Song Lianqing has for Chai Junlang, but it's all because of a woman. Hee. Chai Junlang begged for mercy before he died, but Song Lianqing killed him. He died a miserable death." The crowd was in an uproar again, and they all turned to look at Wan Lihong. Who didn't know that Song Lianqing and Chai Junlang had been fighting for Wan Bosheng's granddaughter, Wan Ling? The only person who could make the two of them fight at all costs was probably Wan Ling. In order to please Wan Ling, the two of them had fought more than once or twice. No one expected that they would be so ruthless this time. and take each other's life. Chapter 9:12. Wan Li Hong, who had been watching the show from the side, as if nothing had happened to him, suddenly raised his wine cup in shock. When he saw the ridicule in the eyes of the various sex representatives, he really wanted to cry out that he was innocent. He was one of the people who had witnessed Yu Qianqiu killing Song Lianqing and Chai Junlang with his own eyes. It was not what Yu Qianqiu had said. However, he had no way to stand out and testify for this matter. Firstly, he was wary of Yu Qianqiu's background, and he really did not want to offend Yu Qianqiu. Secondly, these two people's deaths were really related to Wan Ling. If it wasn't for Wan Ling's intentional bait, these two people wouldn't have gone to Yu Qianqiu and ended up being killed by Yu Qianqiu in the end. Wan Li Hong had an awkward expression on his face as he continued to drink his wine. Others might not understand, but he could see that this Yu Qianqiu was obviously trying to shift the blame for Chai Junlang's death onto Song Lianqing, so that Xiaoyao Palace would find trouble with Heartless Palace. Thinking about it carefully, there might really be some trouble between these two sections. Chai Junlang was the only son of Xiaoyao Palace Lord Chai Xiaoraoa. How could Chai Xiaoyao not seek an explanation from Heartless Palace? Even if he didn't, he would definitely seek an explanation from Song Yin Xian. In short, Song Yin Xian was in trouble. This Yu Qianqiu was indeed worthy of being an immortal emperor's secret agent. His methods were indeed ruthless. The moment he made a move, he wanted to make Song Yin Xian suffer the consequences. Wan Li Hong sighed lightly and continued to drink his wine. In any case, this matter had nothing to do with Wan Gutong, so he was too lazy to say anything. Naturally, Song Yin Xian knew what Yu Qianqiu's words meant. His grandson's death was already in the past. What he was thinking about was how to take revenge for him. If Xiaoyao Palace Master remembered him, because of this, even though he had the powerful background of Heartless Palace, it would still be a headache. Maybe one day, Chai Xiaoyao would vent his anger on him and secretly take revenge for his son. After all, his grandson was already dead. Great Cloud Xian naturally couldn't allow this matter to be placed on his dead grandson's head. Otherwise, the trouble would extend to him. He immediately snorted coldly and said, "Ma Fengnan, don't listen to this guy's nonsense. He's deliberately sowing discord between our two families. You should know that everyone saw how Wan Ling took this kid away. If I'm not wrong, Lian Qing and Chai Junlang must have found him because of this, and in the end, they were killed by him." Ma Fengnan naturally knew that this was a serious matter. After glancing at him, he stared at Yu Qianqiu and said, "Why should I believe what you said? What proof do you have? Testify. Believe it or not, it's up to you." Speaking of which, I was tricked by this Chai Junlang. Yu Qianqiu looked at the jade token in Grey Cloud Xian's hand and snorted coldly. Before Chai Junlang was killed by Song Lianqing, he accidentally discovered me hiding in the dark and cried for help, causing me to be discovered by Song Lianqing. Hee. I was just passing by and didn't want to interfere with their business. Who knew that this Song Lianqing actually wanted to kill me to silence me and recklessly chased after me? He didn't have much ability, but he still dared to be so arrogant. I don't know where he got this habit from. He really brought this upon himself. How could I not retaliate and allow him to kill me? Hence, I took his life and took his head. Everyone looked at each other and thought that this guy was really bold. He actually dared to openly admit that he killed Grey Cloud Xian's grandson. How could Grey Cloud Xian let him go? Sure enough, Grey Cloud Xian's eyes were about to pop out as he said sternly, "You admit that you killed me, son Song Lianqing?" The killing intent in his body suddenly surged out uncontrollably. Yu Qianqiu withstood the huge pressure from the other party's body and patted his chest as he sneered. "Since I dared to tell you the truth, there's nothing to hide. I will bear the consequences of my own actions. Your grandson Song Lianqing sought his own death and died in my hands. Whatever you want, I will accompany you at any time without hesitation." He admitted this without any hesitation because he knew that regardless of whether he admitted it or not, Grey Cloud Xian wouldn't let him go. Wan Li Hong, who knew the truth among the crowd, sighed inwardly. If she hadn't witnessed the whole thing with her own eyes, she would probably have been fooled by this Yu Qianqiu as well. This guy really played his cards well. He was completely throwing caution to the wind and telling the truth. He was beating around the bush to prove that Cai Junlang was killed by Cang Lianqing. This time, it would be hard for the people present not to believe him. What made Wan Lihong feel helpless was that Wan Ling had confirmed the strong reason why Cai Junlang and Cang Lianqing were killing each other. Presumably, Wan Ling's reputation in the immortal world would be even worse. Wan Lihong wondered how Wan Ling would react if she knew what had happened today. Great Cloud Xian was already trembling with anger, but he was also a big shot in the immortal world. Of course, he knew that he should endure when he could. This wasn't a place for him to make a move. He gritted his teeth and said, Yu Qianqiu, the moment you step out of the paradise wonderland will be the moment you die. Yu Qianqiu snorted disdainfully. He did not expect Cangyan Xian to be able to endure this. Before Yu Qianqiu could reply, Ma Fengnan, who was at the side, interjected, Cangyan Xian, how impressive. No wonder he could raise such a powerful grandson. Great Cloud Xian was stunned. He frowned and said, Ma Fengnan, you're not a 3-year-old kid, right? You actually believe such words? Ma Fengnan snorted coldly. What do I believe? Seeing that the situation was getting out of hand, Mu Bing, who had already stopped toasting in the crowd, finally couldn't hold it in any longer. He teleported over and pointed his finger at Yu Qianqiu as he shouted, Yu Qianqiu, do you really think that I don't dare to deal with you? Yu Qianqiu glanced at him coldly. He resisted the urge to make a move. Instead, he cupped his fists at Mu Bing and said, President Mu, why are you blaming me for their quarrel? Mu Bing was instantly enraged by his retort. He shouted sternly, How dare you? You still dare to quibble? Right at this moment, a dignified snort reverberated through the air. What's going on? Everyone turned to look. They saw an indifferent Wu Xiong holding the hand of Mu Tianjiao, who was wearing a phoenix coronet, walking out from the arched door next door. The two of them had also been disturbed by the commotion here. Behind them, a large group of golden-robed people appeared one after another. Each of them had an extraordinary aura. Their cold eyes swept across the crowd. They were all people of high status in the immortal palace. Clearly, they had also been alarmed by the commotion here. The appearance of this group of people immediately gave everyone a great deal of pressure. None of them dared to even breathe loudly. Among these people were the immortal palace's internal affairs grand commander, who rarely showed his face in the immortal world. There were also the immortal world's law enforcement guards, who were feared by all the sects in the immortal world. There were also the 24 protectors who guarded the immortal palace's grand throne room. This large group of people were all at the early stage of the immortal emperor realm, or above. A large number of them stood on the stairs. It could be said that there were as many experts as there were clouds. Wu Xiong saw Mu Bing, Cangyan Xian, and Ma Fengnan surrounding Yu Qianqiu. They were at daggers drawn. He didn't know what was going on. He cast a questioning look at the Great Bright Wheel and transmitted his voice to her. Great Bright Wheel, what's the meaning of this? Mu Tianjiao also seemed a little surprised. She didn't know why they were surrounding Yu Qianqiu. They had heard the commotion here before. They thought that nothing would happen with the Great Bright Wheel present. Who knew that the commotion here would not end? It was too outrageous. Everyone came to see what was going on. The Great Bright Wheel snorted coldly and replied, It was originally nothing. But this is your family's business. Even I can't suppress it even if I wanted to. Humph. Let me congratulate you first for finding a good father-in-law. He's very impressive. You've really opened the eyes of all the guests here. Although the words were full of sarcasm, it was more or less to settle the matter in advance. In fact, it was also to protect Yu Qianqiu. It was to let Wu Xiong know that there was originally nothing going on. It was all because of his father-in-law. Wu Xiong stared at Mu Bing with a slight frown. He then swept his gaze over the few golden-robed guards and shouted in a deep voice, What the hell is going on? The golden-robed guards quickly rushed to the bottom of the stairs and saluted. However, thinking that the cause of this matter was Mu Bing's dissatisfaction with the guests, everyone turned to look at Mu Bing. No one dared to say anything, because Mu Bing was the Grand Commander's father-in-law. They really couldn't afford to offend him. Moreover, They didn't dare to hide it from the Grand Commander. Thus they were in a dilemma. Wu Xiong saw the reactions of his subordinates. Combined with the sarcasm of the Great Bright Wheel, he more or less guessed that the cause of this matter was related to Mu Bing. He couldn't help but feel a little annoyed in his heart. Mu Tianjiao was also an astute woman. She more or less sensed something from the expressions of the guards. However, she didn't know what had happened. She looked at Mu Bing inquiringly, hoping that her father would send a message to her. Unexpectedly, when Mu Bing saw Wu Xiong and his daughter arrive, he suddenly felt that he had someone to rely on. He glanced at the Great Bright Wheel, which made him feel somewhat apprehensive, and immediately walked to the bottom of the stairs where his daughter and son-in-law were standing. He pointed at Yu Qianqiu and sneered. This Yu Qianqiu has wantonly behaved atrociously here, and angered the Heartless Palace's high consecrator Tsang. He has also deliberately provoked the relationship between the Heartless Palace and the Xiaoyao Palace. Even my attempts to stop him have been futile. It seems that the Grand Commander has to personally issue an order to punish him. Hearing this, Mu Tianjiao pursed her lips and stared fixedly at her father, still not saying a word. Wu Xiong also stood there without saying a word. In reality, he was listening to a subordinate's detailed report of what had happened. After listening, he tilted his head and glanced at Mu Tianjiao, then stared at Yu Qianqiu and indifferently said, "Yu Qianqiu, who gave you the courage to behave atrociously at this commander's wedding banquet?" The representatives of the various sects below all looked at Yu Qianqiu with pitiful gazes. They all reckoned that he was going to be out of luck. Only Wan Lihong didn't think much of it. He didn't think that anything would really happen to Yu Qianqiu. Mu Bing's face revealed a trace of complacency. Song Yunxin's expression showed that he couldn't wait to personally slaughter Wu Xiong. The representatives of the various sects all had expressions of pity or schadenfreude. Furthermore, the group of experts on the stairs looked at him, as if they were looking at an ant. It turned out that in everyone's eyes, he was someone who could be easily bullied. Yu Qianqiu took in everything that was happening. A ruthless sneer surfaced in his heart, but his face was filled with endless grief and indignation. He cupped his hands towards Wu Xiong and said, "Reporting to Commander, President Mu's words have made the final decision. I have nothing to say, and I don't want to defend myself. Just as President Mu said, I don't have the qualifications to attend the Commander's wedding banquet. I overestimated myself, and came here to humiliate myself." Chapter 913. Enough! Wu Xiong shouted, and stopped Yu Qianqiu from speaking any further. His face gradually became cold. Regardless of whether Mu Bing was right or wrong, he had to protect Mu Bing today. To be more precise, he had to protect Mu Tianjiao. Taking 10,000 steps back, Mu Bing was now his father-in-law. Yu Qianqiu clearly had enmity with Mu Bing today, so he couldn't let him have a chance to cause trouble for Mu Bing. That would be the same as looking for trouble for himself. Those who could climb to his position were all decisive and ruthless characters. In just a blink of an eye, he had already sentenced Yu Qianqiu to death. The Great Bright Wheel immediately sensed this, and narrowed his eyes. He transmitted his voice with a sneer. "Wu Xiong, although Yu Qianqiu has a close relationship with Wei Chuanqiu's group, if you want to kill him, I absolutely won't stop you. However, I have to remind you that Yu Qianqiu's life is not something we can decide. Before immortal monarch Wu Ji gives up on him, you better think thrice before you act. Don't provoke the immortal emperor's anger. You should know that in the immortal emperor's heart, there are many people who can take over our positions, but immortal monarch Wu Ji's position is unique. Compared to her, you and I are like ants." The Great Bright Wheel's words hit Wu Xiong's weak spot. After saying this, he didn't say anything else. Wu Xiong's heart slightly shivered, and he gratefully glanced at the Great Bright Wheel. If it wasn't for the Great Bright Wheel's reminder, then he would have made a huge mistake. If one day, immortal Lord Wu Xiong really did summon Yu Qianqiu as she had said, and he ended up killing Yu Qianqiu, then this was no different from disregarding an immortal emperor's words. It would have been fine if he wasn't there that day, but he was there. The immortal emperor sparing Yu Qianqiu's life was useful, so how could he knowingly violate it? Yu Qianqiu, who was playing the tragic card, didn't know that his life and death had changed again and again in an instant. In order to account to his two brothers, Wei Chuanqiu and Yun Peng, the great bright will could be said to have grasped the pearl of wisdom and secretly protected him once again. How dare you act so wildly here, humph? If today wasn't my wedding day, I wouldn't have let you off so easily. Wu Xiong stared at Yu Qianqiu and shouted, Man! Expel him out of the paradise immortal realm. Although he wouldn't take Yu Qianqiu's life this time, he was determined to give face to his father-in-law. This was more or less to please his bride Mu Tianjiao. Since he couldn't kill Yu Qianqiu, he could only chase him out. This could be considered as humiliating Yu Qianqiu to make his father-in-law happy. He was only Qianqiu. Qianqiu Yu Qianqiu, Chun and Chun Chun. Ji Chun paradise, and was in Chun. Mo was Chun, 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 comma, 1 and said 1 was Chun of Chun. Being able to stay alive in the paradise immortal realm was already a blessing in disguise. If you don't have the strength, then don't talk about face. At this moment, the flames of rage in Yu Qianqiu's heart could be said to be monstrous. He'd come because he'd received an invitation, yet he'd been driven out in public. How could he endure this? However, he was also a person who had gone through many hardships to climb out. Naturally, he knew what it meant to be flexible, so he did not dare to show the slightest displeasure. The two golden-robed guards flashed to his side and looked at him coldly. Their meaning was obvious. If you don't get lost, we'll use force. Yu Qianqiu silently glanced at the crowd, taking in everyone's contemptuous and indifferent expressions. His eyes, without the slightest emotion, paused on Mu Tianjiao's face for a moment, but he did not accept Mu Tianjiao's extremely apologetic and guilty look. Instead, he directly swept past his mortal enemy, Great Cloud Xian, and instead looked at Mu Bing, who had already risen to the top. Mu Bing's eyes were filled with disdain, as if saying that if it wasn't for today's big day, how could you still be alive? Their eyes met for a while. Yu Qianqiu's eyes did not reveal the same arrogance as Mu Bing's. He simply looked at him from head to toe, then transmitted his voice to the great bright wheel. Please, for the sake of Bat King Wei, help me bring Lady Lu along on the way back. The great bright wheel secretly transmitted his voice back. The people from Heartless Palace will not let you go. I will help you delay him for a while. After you leave the paradise immortal realm, find a secret place to hide. When I return, I will bring you along with me. Naturally, Yu Qianqiu knew that the great bright wheel was referring to was Great Cloud Xian. He immediately replied proudly, Although I am no match for him, if Great Cloud Xian wants to kill me, he is not capable enough. There is no need to stop me. I, Yu Qianqiu, will remember this friendship of yours. I will definitely repay you in the future. With that, he no longer had any lingering feelings for this place. Under the moonlight, he bore the humiliation all over his body and strode away. The great bright will looked at his back thoughtfully. He did not think that Yu Qianqiu's words were too arrogant. Instead, he thought about how he was able to recruit Wei Chuanqiu and Yun Peng to serve him. He must have some extraordinary qualities, so he would wait and see. Mu Tianjiao's eyes were filled with helplessness as she stared at the back of the resolute leaving figure. From the determined look in his eyes, she could see that from now on, they could no longer be friends. Instead, they might become enemies. Anyone who suffered such a great humiliation would probably never be able to forget it for the rest of their lives. Seeing Yu Qianqiu's figure disappear outside the door, Mu Tianjiao's eyes were filled with frustration and helplessness. She looked at her father, not knowing what to say. She did not want to say anything more. This was because personality determined one's fate. She knew that no matter what she said, there was no turning back. How dare he come here to cause trouble? If it wasn't for the fact that today is a joyous occasion, it would be too easy for him to leave alive. Mu Bing snorted coldly and immediately put on a smile. He picked up his wine glass and displayed the spirit of a host. He greeted the surrounding guests. Don't let an irrelevant person spoil our mood. Everyone, please continue to drink to your heart's content. The group of guests immediately smiled and raised their glasses. Sure enough, they acted as if nothing had happened. The great bright wheel, and Wu Xiong looked at Mu Bing at almost the same time. The two of them did not say anything. The Great Bright will continued to raise his glass to help Wu Xiong entertain the guests. However, at this moment, Songyin Xian suddenly walked out. He walked to the bottom of the stairs and cupped his hands towards Wu Xiong. Great Commander, I am truly sorry. I am feeling unwell, and will take my leave now. I hope the Great Commander will be magnanimous enough to forgive me. As soon as he said this, the guests from the various sects all looked at each other. They all knew that Songyin Xian's feeling unwell was just an excuse. It was most likely that he wanted to go out and kill Yu Qianqiu. In the crowd, Wan Liheng looked at Songyin Xian with a strange expression. He thought that if this old man really killed the secret agent sent by the Celestial Emperor, then the Heartless Palace would be very lively. Since you are feeling unwell, I won't keep you. Wu Xiong smiled and raised his hand, gesturing for him to leave. Of course, he knew what Songyin Xian wanted to do. However, he wanted nothing more than for Songyin Xian to do this. He really did not want to leave Yu Qianqiu alive. If Yu Qianqiu really caught the eye of a mortal Lord Dancing Ji in the future, it would not be a good thing for him. Since someone was acting on his behalf, and it had nothing to do with him, why not? Thank you for your help, Great Commander. I wish you and your wife a harmonious couple. I will take my leave first. Songyin Xian cupped his hands and strode away. Mu Bing's eyes lit up when he saw Songyin Xian leave. He called out to the crowd again. Everyone, please drink to your heart's content. Wu Xiong had a smile on his face as he raised his cup to the crowd. Suddenly, he saw De Mingluan indifferently glance at him, and immediately knew that De Mingluan had guessed his thoughts. He then transmitted his voice to Wu Xiong. If Brother Mingluan really has a deep relationship with Yu Qianqiu, it's not too late to stop him. You don't need to test me. Since you've made your decision, I will naturally stand on your side. De Mingluan transmitted. But in his heart, he hoped that Yu Qianqiu really did have the ability to escape from Songyin Xian. Wu Xiong smiled with satisfaction. Then, he nodded to a subordinate beside him. That subordinate quickly accepted the order and flashed into the pavilion at the back. When he reached the top floor of the pavilion, he conveyed the Great Commander's decree. Lu Yanqing, who was standing at the window of the top floor, had personally witnessed everything that had just happened. She had witnessed the scene of Yu Qianqiu being humiliated and driven away. She had been silently standing at the window until she received the order from the golden-robed guard. She slowly turned around. Behind her, a guqin had already been placed on the table. Lu Yanqing walked over and sat down cross-legged. She gazed at the guqin and adjusted her emotions. A faint smile appeared on her face, and her slender fingers began to touch the strings of the guqin. Ding ding dong dong. A clear and unrestrained prelude of a zither suddenly came from the top floor of the loft. That heartwarming rhythm instantly made everyone throw away their previous thoughts and worries. It immediately grasped everyone's heartstrings, allowing everyone's mood to gradually relax along with the zither. After the melody changed, a clear and melodious female voice sang from the pavilion. The world of mortals is laughable. Infatuation is the most boring. It's good to look down on everyone. This life is not over, but the heart has no worries. I just want to be free and unfettered for the rest of my life. I smile at people when I'm awake, and forget everything in my dreams. I sigh that the sky darkens too early. The next life is unpredictable. Love and hate are written off. I only wish to be happy until I'm old. Everyone's faces were filled with surprise and infatuation when they suddenly heard the sound of nature. The sound of cups rising and falling had completely disappeared. Everyone's eyes involuntarily looked up at the pavilion. It just so happened that the moon was hanging high in the sky above the pavilion. It was exceptionally bright. The sound of nature flowed out slowly under the hazy moonlight. Everyone felt as if they had fallen into a dream. They were so relaxed and happy that they could not extricate themselves. De Mingluan looked at the pavilion with some surprise. Others did not know, but he knew who was in the pavilion. It was the girl that he had personally brought. He just did not expect that Yu Qianqiu would have such a talent under him. She could play and sing such a beautiful song. However, other than the person playing and singing upstairs, only Mu Tianjiao downstairs knew who composed this song. Mu Tianjiao could not help but murmur to herself along with the song. The higher the sky, the narrower the heart. Regardless of the cause and effect, I fall drunk alone. A woman was a woman after all. No matter how strong or rational she was still a woman. How many women did not like romance? Especially this kind of peerless heavenly sound that could be considered unprecedented in this world. How many women could not feel their hearts palpitate with excitement? It was a pity that the talented person who could produce such a romantic song had no fate with her. Mu Tianjiao suddenly felt a pang of pain in her heart. Her heart ached for not persevering. She felt that she had lost something because of something. Wu Xiong heard her murmur and tilted his head to look at her. He smiled and said, "My Wu Xiong's wife indeed has unique foresight. Her recommendation was not wrong at all. To be able to hear such heavenly music on our wedding day is the fortune of 3 lifetimes." He stretched out the empty wine cup in his hand, and someone immediately filled it. He was in a good mood as he raised his cup and laughed heartily at everyone. As the song goes, we should sing to the wine and be happy until we're old. Let's drink to our heart's content. Chapter 9:14. Some people were happy, while others were unhappy. While these people were drinking and singing, Yu Qianqiu, who had been chased out in humiliation, was rushing out of the Paradise Immortal Realm. His heart was cold. He wanted to leave the Paradise Immortal Realm as soon as possible. If anything happened, it would not be convenient to make a move in the Paradise Immortal Realm. However, the accident he had guessed still happened. Yu Qianqiu, who was flying at high speed, suddenly heard a cold snort. He turned his head and was shocked to see that Songyan Xian had caught up to him and was flying not far away from him. Yu Qianqiu had thought that he would come, but he did not expect him to come so soon. "Why are you so flustered? Are you afraid now?" Songyan Xian sneered. Yu Qianqiu immediately sneered. "Old dog, do you think I need to be afraid of you now? Even if I gave you 100 guts, you wouldn't dare to make a move here." These words made Songyan Xian somewhat angry. However, after looking around, he really did not dare to make a move here. His expression twisted as he gritted his teeth and said, "You have a sharp tongue. Later, I'll let you know what it means to beg for death." Yu Qianqiu looked at him disdainfully and said, "Threatening me? Do you believe that I'll make you beg for death right now?" "You." Songyan Xian put on a fake smile and said, a toad yawning, "You sure have a big tone." "Hee. Not only do I have a big tone, I also have big guts. Do you want to give it a try?" Yu Qianqiu flicked his sleeves, and over 100 azure flame flying swords flew out of his sleeves, circling around him as he flew. Songyan Xian's pupils shrank, and he said in a low voice, "You dare to make a move here?" Yu Qianqiu smiled sinisterly and said, "You think I don't dare? This old man's life is worthless, and I'll die if I go out anyway. Rather than that, I might as well fight it out with you here. Everyone knows that you're here to kill me anyway, so it's only natural for you to make a move against me, regardless of whether I made a move first or not. As long as you break the rules of the Paradise Immortal Realm, don't think about having a good life. Hee. Even if I were to shout for help right now, I could still make you suffer the consequences. To be able to drag you, an expert from the Heartless Palace, down with me, I won't die in vain. It's worth it." Grey Cloud Xian's expression changed, and his face twitched. He didn't expect this guy to be so shameless, and actually use this move to threaten him. However, he had no choice but to believe it. Think about it. A person who had been forced into a desperate situation. What else would he not dare to do? Using his precious life to gamble for Yu Qianqiu's lowly life was not worth it. "Old dog, I'm warning you. If I can still see you within a kilometer of me within the count of 3, don't blame me for hunting you down in the Paradise Immortal Realm. We'll all die together." Yu Qianqiu raised 3 fingers and counted with a ferocious expression. 1, 2. The ruthlessness of a hooligan was undeniable. However, before he could finish counting 2, Grey Cloud Xian gritted his teeth and turned into a flowing light. He felt extremely sullen in his heart. A grand early-stage immortal emperor expert was actually scared away by a small fry. However, he really couldn't afford to play such a hooligan game. Even if he wanted to bet, he didn't have the guts to do so. His life was more precious than the other parties. This was the so-called barefooted person, wasn't afraid of those who wore shoes. Yu Qianqiu winked and cheerfully put away the flying swords that were circling around him. He really didn't have the confidence to fight against such an expert. If he wasn't forced into a corner, it would be best not to fight against such a person. The risk factor was just too great. As long as he could force the other party a little further away, once he left the Paradise Immortal realm, he would be able to escape at any time. Otherwise, with the other party by his side, there was a possibility of being killed at any time. Perhaps, he wouldn't even have the time to escape. However, he only laughed for a short while before he couldn't laugh anymore. He could faintly see that Grey Cloud Excian was always in front of him. Clearly he was staring at him. According to this trend, the other party would sooner or later be waiting for him at the border of the Paradise Immortal realm. However, it wasn't convenient for him to teleport away. Moreover, he couldn't stay here or change his flying direction. He believed that if he did that, the people from the Immortal Palace would immediately come to interfere. However, after thinking about it, he felt relieved. Grey Cloud Excian was so timid, he probably wouldn't dare to make a move at the border of the Paradise Immortal realm. In the end, as Yu Qianqiu expected, when he was about to fly to the border of the Paradise Immortal realm, Grey Cloud Excian was floating in midair hundreds of meters away, waiting for him with a sinister smile. Yu Qianqiu's figure flashed and landed on a hill at the critical point. He raised his middle finger at Song Yin Excian, his face full of mockery and disdain, and then directly burrowed into the ground. He knew Earth escape. Grey Cloud Excian was shocked. He immediately teleported over and scanned the surroundings with his perception. However, he couldn't find any trace of Yu Qianqiu. Grey Cloud Excian didn't believe that Yu Qianqiu could escape so quickly underground. Everything had happened in the blink of an eye. With the other party's cultivation, it was impossible for his Earth escape speed to be faster than the speed of his perception. However, after searching all over the place, he still couldn't find anything. In the end, the enraged Grey Cloud Excian would immediately wave his palms and shoot out rays of light whenever he found any suspicious places underground. Explosions shook the surroundings, blasting hundreds of deep holes in the ground. However, he still couldn't find any trace of Yu Qianqiu. After the commotion ended, Grey Cloud Excian couldn't help but stand dumbstruck on a hill in the wilderness. If this matter got out, he would definitely become the laughingstock of the immortal world. With his cultivation, he actually didn't even have the ability to hunt down Yu Qianqiu. In the Paradise Immortal mountain range, not too far away, two golden-robed guards looked at each other. They had secretly received Wu Xiong's instructions to monitor the outcome of Grey Cloud Excian's attack on Yu Qianqiu. The two of them originally thought that Yu Qianqiu was dead for sure this time, but they didn't expect Grey Cloud Excian to actually fail. The two of them nodded speechlessly and turned into rays of light to return to life. In the basement of the World Commerce Association, Yu Qianqiu quietly appeared. He easily took off all his clothes and then soaked himself in the bath pool. Leaning against the wall, he leisurely hummed a part of a Beijing opera tune. Back then, this old man's team had just opened. There were only a dozen people and 7 or 8 guns. The Imperial Army chased me until I was dizzy. Thanks to sister-in-law Qing, she told me to hide in a water jar. It was late at night, and the wedding banquet in the Foreign Affairs Grand Commander's manor had already ended. Mu Bing was in a side room happily directing 2 guards to count the congratulatory gifts sent by various sections. De Ming Luan, Lu Yanqing, Mu Tianjiao, and Wu Xiong were standing in the attic discussing something. You really don't want to go back? De Ming Luan stared at Lu Yanqing and frowned. Miss Lu, I advise you to go back with me first. Before Yu Qianqiu left, he asked me to bring you back. Since I've already agreed, how can I not keep my promise? If there's anything, you can talk to Yu Qianqiu yourself. I won't get involved in your matters. Wu Xiong glanced at the hesitant Lu Yanqing. Under Mu Tianjiao's invitation, Lu Yanqing had already agreed to stay with Mu Tianjiao and not return to the World Commerce Association. Wu Xiong smiled and said to De Mingluan, Brother Mingluan, Since Miss Lu has already agreed to my wife's request to stay, why don't you give me some face and let Miss Lu stay here? As for the World Commerce Association, it doesn't matter if she returns or not. I'm afraid that Yu Qianqiu won't be able to escape from Ash Gray Cloud Xan. De Mingluan glanced at him and sneered. You're that confident? What if Yu Qianqiu escapes from Ash Gray Cloud Xan? So what? Wu Xiong glanced at Mu Tianjiao and said with a faint smile. Even if Yu Qianqiu is still alive, so what? If I, Wu Xiong, ask for a person from Yu Qianqiu, would he dare to refuse? De Mingluan's brows furrowed again. After thinking for a while, he said to Lu Yanqing, Miss Lu, if you really don't want to go back, why don't you write down your reasons? I'll help you bring them to Yu Qianqiu. It's better than having me go back empty-handed. Lu Yanqing nodded slightly and took out a jade archive. After thinking for a while, she injected something into it and handed it over to De Mingluan. De Mingluan put away the jade archive and stared at Lu Yanqing. I'll ask you again. This is your own choice. Is no one forcing you? Wu Xiong heard this and laughed. Brother Mingluan, you make it sound like I'm forcing Miss Lu to stay. Lu Yanqing bit her lip and said, I'm staying of my own accord. I don't want to return to the World Commerce Association. De Mingluan looked at her silently for a while. Seeing that she didn't seem to be lying, he said indifferently, logically speaking, I should be forcefully bringing you back. But for Brother Wu's sake, I'll let it go. You're on your own. Finished speaking, he cupped his fists at Wu Xiong and was about to leave. But coincidentally, the two guards sent to keep an eye on Yu Qianqiu and Grey Cloud Xian had returned. They walked to the bottom of the stairs and bowed to Wu Xiong. Wu Xiong immediately smiled and said, Brother Mingluan, please stay for now. It won't be too late to leave after listening. He then asked the two guards, How's the situation? The two of them looked at each other. One of them cupped his fists and replied, Reporting to the great commander, Grey Cloud Xian and Yu Qianqiu confronted each other after leaving the Paradise of Bliss. Just as Grey Cloud Xian was about to make a move, Yu Qianqiu used the Earth Escape technique to escape. Grey Cloud Xian caused quite a commotion to chase after him, but he still couldn't stop Yu Qianqiu from escaping. Wu Xiong was stunned. He had thought that Yu Qianqiu was dead for sure. With Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, it was impossible for him to escape from Grey Cloud Xian's clutches. That was why he had De Mingluan stay behind to listen. This way, De Mingluan would know that Lu Yanqing had stayed behind and wouldn't make things difficult for him. But what he couldn't believe was that Grey Cloud Xian had actually let Yu Qianqiu escape. De Mingluan heaved a sigh of relief after hearing this. He was also amazed in his heart. He thought to himself that this Yu Qianqiu was really not simple. De Mingluan didn't say anything. He glanced at Wu Xiong indifferently. This Wu Xiong undoubtedly owed him another favor. He didn't say anything else and turned into a stream of light and flew away. He really wasn't someone ordinary people could compare to. Mu Tianjiao sighed slightly in her heart and looked at Lu Yanqing. The reason why she had urged Lu Yanqing to stay behind was because she had judged that Yu Qianqiu was extraordinary. Grey Cloud Xian might not be able to kill him, and now it had confirmed her judgment. Only she knew the reason why she had left Lu Yanqing behind. She knew that the relationship between the Mu family and Yu Qianqiu could not be salvaged, but she still wanted to make one last effort. She vaguely felt that Lu Yanqing might be able to play a role when the time came. She might even be able to save Mu Bing's life at a critical moment, so she had tried her best to keep her. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.